Now, happy Wednesday and welcome back to 580 Sports Talk. Following our Christmas break, we appreciate you spending some time with us as we return to your airwaves, your computers, your screens, wherever you might be listening or watching to us today. We appreciate you hanging out with us here on 580 Sports Talk. Plenty to get to. Hope you had a very Merry Christmas, a nice long weekend off, whether you were celebrating, not, got to spend time with your family or not. Hope you had a good time. Hope you didn't miss us too badly, but we are back and we have a whole bunch to get to today. But first, flag, 15-yard personal foul. That one's on Dan.
After the play was over, and no, you can't see a replay either.
That's another personal foul. That one's on me. That's another 15 yards after the play. Somehow, the highest scoring bowl game of the year was also arguably the most unwatchable game of the entire bowl season. But KU won, and that is all that matters in the end. Jason Bean, all-time KU program legend. Luke Grimm, Lawrence Arnold going absolutely insane last night in Arizona. We will talk about KU finally winning a bowl game. It has been a long time, a long freaking time since KU has won a bowl game. We will talk about that coming up in the 3 o'clock hour today. We'll actually talk plenty of Jayhawks in the 3 o'clock hour today. Michael Swain is going to join us one day later than normal. He is just getting back from Arizona, in fact, in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. He will join us at the bottom of the 3 o'clock hour. A lot of Chiefs to get to this hour on the show. I know it's been a couple of days. So we've had some time to look back, to reflect on the Christmas Day loss to the Las Vegas Raiders.
Which is probably a good thing, because had we done a show yesterday or a reaction program immediately following the game on Monday, apologies if you were maybe looking for that, by the way, on Monday. If you wanted to come and vent spleen with us, it was Christmas.
Yeah.
Forgive us.
And I wasn't about to ruin my Christmas Day talking about that.
No, I urged the folks where I was at. I said, put some real champions on TV. The Nuggets game is on, so that's how Christmas went at my particular gathering. But anyhow, it's probably good to have had a day plus remove to more coldly examine what exactly went wrong for the Chiefs on Monday, so that we can bring you a little bit more of a reasoned and thought out take on this edition of the show, on a Wednesday show.
And we'll break it all down here coming up in just a moment. We'll also go around the NFL later on this hour. Tim Fitzgerald is going to join us, as he does every Wednesday, for this week's Wildcat Wrap-up on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. We'll find out, A, what Fitz thinks about the matchup with North Carolina State tomorrow in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. We are also going to get some info on how you can watch along with Fitz for the game. He's doing the Fitzcast with the folks over at Go Powercats. We'll talk to Tim Fitzgerald later on in the show today. We'll hear from Andy Reid. We will hear from Patrick Mahomes. They both spoke today. And today is a big day on the show. We only have 2 full shows this week. Today and then Friday. Tomorrow, we only have a half an hour show because K-State's pregame coverage begins at 2:30. So we're only on for half an hour tomorrow. So today, we are going to find our finalists for the What Is Wrong With You Tournament of Failed Champions for 2023. All 12 monthly champions will be referenced, brought up, discussed on today's show. I think we may have done this a different way every single year.
Probably. We do kind of mix it up. We never remember how it is that we do it. The nice thing about it being our thing is we can make up the rules as we go along.
Right.
So the way we decided to do it this year is 12 winners. We want to get down to 4. So we have 4 pods of 3 grouped by month. We have January through March, April through June, July through September, and October through December. And each hour of the program today, we're going to spend our second segment each hour. So 225-ish, 325-ish, 425-ish, 525-ish, picking one winner from each group to advance to our Fail 4, which we will then hash out on Friday. By the way, if you want to relive all 12 of the stories in their original airings on the program this year, we've got that in podcast form on our website, 580wibw.com. So you can check that out tomorrow or Friday or any day you're just killing time at work.
You should go check it out. You absolutely should go check that out.
A labor of love, truly.
So we're going to get to all 12 of them coming up today. We will narrow it down to 4 finalists. And then coming up on Friday's show, we are going to end up finding our champion for the year. We want your votes as well. We want your thoughts as well. So be listening. And our first round of semifinals coming up here in just about 15-ish minutes here on 580 Sports Talk. Of course, we welcome your thoughts. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. You can also find us on YouTube. Our channel is called 580 Sports Talk. We are live video streaming the show today, and every single day we are on the air. Let's get to the Chiefs, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's get to Christmas Day. First game on Christmas Day. I thought the Chiefs were going to win.
Yeah, I picked the Chiefs. Most people picked the Chiefs. They were, I believe, 10-point favorites, the consensus line, 10, 10.5.
I think I saw 11 at one point in one of the books.
Yeah, by the time kickoff closed, the line was double digits. We talked earlier this year that the Chiefs typically win games when they're a double-digit favorite. They'd only ever lost, I think, 1 or 2 of them in the Mahomes era. Well, now it's 2 or 3. And I am typically pretty optimistic as these things go, as these things tend to be. I am like deeply pessimistic about like my own like favorite teams, but without the red colored glasses through which many fans view the Chiefs. I think I look at the Chiefs pretty pragmatically, and I tend to be pretty optimistic about their chances of winning because I've seen Patrick Mahomes' movies and I've seen Andy Reid's movies, and I know how these games usually go. And usually in the end, the Chiefs win. And so even in the previous 5 losses this season, I have watched those games and thought the Chiefs were going to win the game until it was impossible for them to do so. Like literally, they don't have the ball and the time is running out. All 5 previous losses, I have been convinced the Chiefs would win until they literally could not. And Monday was the first time I didn't have that feeling all year. Monday was the first time about midway through the third quarter where I thought, oh, they're cooked. They're not winning this game.
No, for me, there was the moment when Mahomes, and I know it was overturned on a review and it was not an interception. It was the play where Mahomes, I thought he was going to throw it away. He's rolling away from the camera side. So he's going to the far sideline. Chiefs are moving right to left.
Morig almost picked it. Yeah.
Yes.
On the dive. Yeah.
And he just sort of short-armed it. He kind of babied the throw, left it 4 yards short of, I don't even remember who the intended receiver was. And it gets nearly picked off. And I told Abby, we were watching together, I thought he was throwing it away. My dad was watching with us. I thought he was throwing it away.
Yeah.
What is he doing? Like, that's what is this? Like, what is happening? And that's the moment for me where I thought this is not going to end well for this Chiefs team. And if you looked at the box score and took away the final score, you just look at the very basic stats. You said, yeah, Mahomes wasn't very good. Took him 44 attempts to get to 235 yards. You'd say, ooh, that's kind of rough. 1 touchdown, 1 pick, got sacked 4 times, ran the ball well. He scrambled well, which usually is an indicator the Chiefs are going to be fine offensively. And I told you that Aiden O'Connell went 3 consecutive quarters to end the game without completing a pass. You would say, wow, that was probably the ugliest 18-9 win of all time, but at least the Chiefs won. Wrong! Incorrect! It has been over a decade since a team had back-to-back games with 2 or more defensive touchdowns. And the Raiders were able to accomplish that against this Chiefs team. That is a disaster. And I know that you can say, well, look, it was still a 1-score game. And in the Chiefs, you look at the numbers, you look at the essentially aside from stopping Zamir White, which we said on the show last week, stopping the run, going to be huge. Chiefs really couldn't do it, especially late in the game. You still were only down 1 possession. Anytime in that game, the Chiefs score 1 more touchdown, they win. And even if you feel like, man, this is ugly, there's still a little bit of you that says, all it takes is 1. All it takes is a broken tackle by Rashee Rice, and the Chiefs are going to end up winning this game. But they just look so... I don't even know what word to use. Usually I'm good with the thesaurus words, but I don't even have one right now. It's blah. It's milquetoast. It's just
lethargic.
Yeah,
one that kind of came to mind for me.
This team has no offensive momentum, and not momentum in the sense that they're starting to pick it up. They're starting to heat up. Like, I think of a team like Buffalo is a team that has momentum in the sense that winning is begetting winning, but they've got nothing behind them right now that makes you think yeah, this is getting fixed. And that's the thing that is unfortunate for this year, because it's my belief that the only thing that is going to fix this Chiefs problem, and we'll get to some of the intangible issues coming up throughout the show, I don't think that this team's issues can be fixed this season. I don't. And that's unfortunate. If, when we were running into these problems first half of the season, even midway through the season, my belief was you've still got time to figure this out. You've still got time to get a little bit better. You got 2 games left.
Yeah.
You've got 2 regular season games left, then a playoff game. You're playing wild card weekend this year. And at some point, in all likelihood at this rate, you're going to end, because the Dolphins also won this weekend along with the Ravens. Whoa, we'll get to those games later. You're probably going to end up, if you win the wild card round game, on the road second week of the playoffs. This is going to be newfound territory for the Chiefs. And there's nothing that I see with this offense. And the defense, they held Aiden O'Connell to no completions for 3 straight quarters.
Yeah, they held the Raiders 6 points. I mean, I don't know. You would have liked them to get a stop there at the very end when the whole world knows the Raiders are going to run the ball, just load the box and dare them to throw on that final drive, and don't have Bolton and Gay, normally sure tacklers, whiff on tackles on that third down that basically ended the game, or that second down run that basically ended the game. But you cannot ask for a whole lot more from the defense at this point. You have to point the fingers at the offense, and it's systemic. It's everybody. That was the first Chiefs game I have watched, probably ever, where I felt like they were poorly coached. And what I mean by that, I've never seen them take longer to get plays in. I've never seen there be more confusion in the huddle. I've never seen there be more confusion pre-snap. I've never seen Mahomes less certain in what it is that he's going to see when he drops back. They looked unprepared on offense in a way I never thought I would see an Andy Reid team look unprepared. Poorly coached. Those are things that poorly coached teams do. And I don't think Andy Reid all of a sudden is a bad coach. I don't know what the hell that was, but it was systemic failure on offense. If you're pointing the finger at one guy or another guy or one coach or one assistant coach, you've got 8 fingers and 2 thumbs. Spread them around. There's no shortage of blame that belongs on the offense. That's the first time I've ever watched them and said, boy, they are acting like a poorly coached team acts.
I think this is a team that needs a breath of fresh air from top to bottom. And I think it comes to me, the intangible thing that I've noticed, there's just no trust in this offense. There is no trust at all that anyone is going to end up making a play in the passing game. And eventually that trickles down to your quarterback. And much of this season was spent with, hey, Mahomes is still doing Mahomes things. Maybe he's not been as great as he was, say, last year when he won an MVP and a Super Bowl, but he is still dragging this team kicking and screaming to winning games. This has trickled down to him. He was bad. Yesterday was not, well, it was bad by Mahomes standard. No, he was bad. I'm sorry, not yesterday, Monday. That was a badly quarterbacked game by Patrick Mahomes, which we have been able to say, you normally count on one hand the number of times you can genuinely say that over the course of his career. Maybe just a couple of fingers. But the fact that you've got one guy who you can trust in Travis Kelce, and defenses know that too, and Kelce is getting beaten up more than normal. He's already got the record for yards and maybe touchdowns for a tight end over 34 years old.
Fastest to 900 catches as a tight end as well. He went over the 900 reception mark in that game.
And at some point, defenses know when, and I'm not saying, oh, they shouldn't have traded Tyreek Hill because they won a Super Bowl after. I think that's a very dumb take. But you go back a couple of years, you had the situation where it's Kelce or Hill. You cannot possibly take away both. Last year, you only had the one, but you at least had more competence with the offense. I think the line played better last year than it has for a lot of this season, and that was a bad game for the offensive line, a terrible game for the offensive line Monday.
Did you know Malcolm Kuntz was the best pass rusher in the league?
No, I did not.
Did you know Malcolm Kuntz was that good? I'll tell you what, when Kuntz is a third-year player, after his fourth year, when he gets paid, he should sign over 5% of his salary to Wanye Morris, because Wanye Morris made him so much money on Monday. That was a rookie left tackle, a mid-round rookie left tackle, looking like a mid-round rookie left tackle. Really, if you want, you can say everything stems from how badly the Chiefs got whipped at the line of scrimmage. The offensive line and the defensive line both got worked for 60 minutes in a way.
Yep.
Again, I haven't seen that all year. Like, have Jawan Taylor and Donovan Smith / Wanye Morris been great, been all pro caliber? No, but it hasn't been that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that on Monday in a way that kind of does create a situation where everything else kind of comes apart like a house of cards.
I think, and I don't know that this is going to happen because we know Andy Reid's loyal to his guys, and I think the Chiefs have a good coaching staff. I do. But it feels to me like this is an offense that just needs a breath of fresh air. Andy Reid's not going anywhere, and good. I wouldn't want him to go anywhere. Mahomes, a lot of the offensive pieces are not. And we know about the wide receivers. Like, MVS is going to get cut. I think pretty sure he is guaranteed that at this point. He's going to end up getting cut.
61 snaps on Monday. As many targets as you had eating your Christmas ham.
Well, now let's be fair. He had one target.
Oh,
he did get one target. He had 0 catches, 0 yards. Right. He is your highest paid wide receiver. Yeah. He's getting cut. Kadarius Toney, we know. Sky Moore, like, these dudes stink. They're going to get more wide receivers this offseason. I would put a bet on that. I would say I'm not even getting great odds putting a bet on that. They're going to revamp that wide receiver room. But, I mean, even look at the coaching staff. And I'm not trying to say fire some people, especially, right after the holidays. I'm not begging, oh, you got to fire Nagy. You got to do this. Although I will say my dad, Bears fan, as soon as we're watching the Chiefs, we're watching them struggle, he goes, Matt Nagy effect. Bears fans are so permanently salty about Matt Nagy as their head coach. They'll never get over it.
And as much as we know, and anybody who watches the Chiefs, follows the Chiefs, knows, at the end of the day, it's Andy Reid's offense, and the offensive coordinator is just kind of a babysitter to what Andy Reid wants to do on offense. So I am always careful ascribing too much of the success or the failure of the Chiefs on offense to the offensive coordinator, whether that was Matt Nagy, whether that was Eric Bieniemy, and whether it's Matt Nagy now. But, and Dante Hall pointed this out on the NFL Network this morning, that's the only thing that's different between last year when they had mostly the same bums at wide receiver and won a Super Bowl, and this year.
And it does.
That's the biggest difference.
And it does make me wonder. Because I've seen, I know our guy Vance has asked us this a couple of times over the course of the year, and I think a lot of people have brought this up, like the change in offensive coordinator and how many problems has Nagy created. What about Eric Bieniemy? Should the Chiefs have just done anything they could to have kept EB? I think EB is about to be going through the unemployment line when this season's over. They just benched their quarterback who they built their whole offense around this season with good receivers, an offensive line with at least decent running backs. That whole staff's getting fired in Washington. Yeah, I would imagine so. Like, I like Jacoby Brissett. I know you like Jacoby Brissett. He's starting the rest of the way for the Commanders. If you are going to Jacoby Brissett now at this point in the year, that is rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic at this point. So I think to me, the problem is less so Matt Nagy. I think to me, it is more so this is a long time that Andy Reid has been here, and this era specifically, it has just been the same voices in that offensive room. It was EB for a long time at 2 different spots. It's been Matt Nagy on and off, but Matt Nagy at a couple of different spots. It's been the same coaching staff for so long, save for the wide receivers room, which is new, and that has obviously not gone well this year. So to me, I would love to bring in a guy, and this is all, can be talked about more in the offseason, but I would love to bring in someone who, maybe knows Andy Reid. That's generally who Andy Reid hires as his assistants, right, guys? He knows.
Right.
But I would love to have the Chiefs bring someone in, whether it's at a positional coach spot, maybe for the receiver room, maybe it's at offensive coordinator, excuse me, someone with a little bit more of an outside voice, because I feel like it's a little too much of an echo chamber. That's my assumption at this point for the Chiefs offense, because things are stale. Dante Hall said today that Mahomes needs to be more willing to check the ball down. Well, he's throwing passes shorter than he's ever thrown before in his entire career.
Yeah, shortest depth of target in his career. I think 36 of the 44 passes he threw on Monday were within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. So Mahomes' willingness to check the ball down is not what is ailing this offense. It's the fact that he's dropping back. Like, how many times does he throw in rhythm? How many times do you go 1-2 and the ball's out?
Almost never.
You're not seeing him do that this year. And that comes down to, does he think the guy on the other end is going to catch the ball, or is he going to deflect it into the hands of a linebacker? Does he think that guy is going to run the right route and be where he's supposed to be, or is Mahomes going to drop back 1-2, balls out, and nobody's home because the route doesn't get run precisely? it's systemic. Again,
It is.
It's everybody is to blame. And one more point I want to make here, and we'll get, like we said, there's a broader intangible thing I think that is becoming obvious ever since the Bills game for this Chiefs team. Earlier this year, I read a profile of a former Chief, Orlando Brown Jr. Tyler Dunn wrote a profile for his website, and Tyler Dunn was in the news not long ago because he wrote that big, long Sean McDermott expose. So he's a guy, he's tied in, he's writing a lot of stuff about the NFL, and he got a profile of Orlando Brown Jr. And one of the things that Orlando Brown Jr. talks about is how much more he likes it in Cincinnati than he did in Kansas City. He feels like it's a higher priority to take care of your body in Cincinnati, that they practice really hard in Kansas City, some things he complained about. But there was this part of it too. He talked about the fact that the Chiefs aren't very rah-rah. This is a quote from Brown in the article. Every game is the Super Bowl. It's different, but that's what makes it special. I think to be as successful as the Chiefs have been, which is not just to have winning seasons, but to be top of the AFC, to go to 5 straight conference championship games, to go to the Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowls, and win 2 of them. You have to treat the regular season. You have to treat all of these games like they're the biggest game of the season. And I think that mindset has helped the Chiefs over time. But I think there have been 2 games this year where the Chiefs played an opponent that was more ready to play, that was more fired up to play, that took it more personally, that played like it was their Super Bowl. And the Chiefs did not match that. One of them was the Denver loss, and the other one was this one. And you heard or Antonio Pierce, who, by God, better be the next full-time head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, the way things are trending for that franchise. You heard what he talked about before the game. You heard his post-game comments. You could tell that game meant something to the Raiders that it did not mean to the Chiefs, even though a Chiefs win would have guaranteed them a division championship, would have locked them in to another AFC West championship. And the Chiefs couldn't get up for that. They couldn't get up for that occasion in the same way that the Raiders could. And that, again, suggests a systemic issue that's bigger than X's and O's.
We'll talk more Chiefs later on in the show. We'll go around the NFL a little bit later on this hour. Would love to get your thoughts on what was an ugly, ugly game Christmas Day for the Chiefs against the Raiders. Again, text line number is 785-272-9429, or you can hit us up on YouTube, where our channel is called 580 Sports Talk. On the other side of this break, our first What Is Wrong With You Tournament of Failed Champions semifinals, our 3 most recent monthly winners. That's up next on 580 Sports Talk. It is the final week of shows for What Is Wrong With You in the calendar year 2023. And that means it is time for our first semifinals of our What Is Wrong With You Tournament of Failed Champions. This is 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dorzinski, Dan Lucero here with you. As we told you at the top of the show, the way we are handling our semifinals this year, we have broken up our 12 monthly winners into 4 different groups of 3. So it'll be 3-way semifinals, and they're all just done chronologically. We're going to start with our end-of-the-year winners, but we've got a January through March group. This one's October through December, et cetera, so on and so forth. We will pick from these groups of 3 a winner for each group, and then our 4 finalists will be voted on Friday, and we'll find our yearly champion. There are some great ones that we will relive. And Dan, as he mentioned earlier, also put these all together in podcast form for you, so you can check them out on our website.
If you wanted to hear how they sounded when we first brought them to you in chronological order from January through December, relive the greatest hits with The Year in What Is Wrong With You, available at our podcast page, 580wibw.com.
All right, let's get to them. Our 3 most recent winners, October, November, and December. Let's start with our October champion. The wrong man waterboarding.
2 brothers and another man facing federal charges in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, following a kidnapping that took some bizarre twists. The 3 men kidnapped a man at gunpoint outside his apartment in Plantation, Florida, chucked his cell phone out of the car, drove him to a home where they took him inside. At some point during all this, they realized they had the wrong guy. They were trying to kidnap the guy's coworker. In the meantime, the wrong guy that was kidnapped was threatened with a gun. They put an electric drill to his skin, pointed a gun at him, and doused him with water in what prosecutors said was a simulated waterboarding. Eventually, the 3 men, the kidnappers, decided they would use the wrong guy to help them lure the right guy. They are able to track down the coworker's phone number and find that guy's location in Pompano Beach, Florida. They drove the victim there and asked him to get the coworker to come outside. Instead, at 2:08 a.m. on October 14th, the wronged waterboarded man phoned in a bomb threat in an effort to get a rapid police response to the building. It worked. Jeffrey Arista, Jonathan Arista, and Raymond Gomez were arrested. They face a maximum life prison sentence if convicted.
Good. They should. Mostly for being dumb above anything else. This was horrifying when we had this story. I hate these guys. The drill, it haunts me. This thought of having someone put a drill to your head, it sticks with me all the time.
Being waterboarded also not something I would prefer to experience.
No, I'd prefer to not.
I'd pass on the waterboarding. I don't know why they felt like they had to do all that. Like, once they figured out they had the wrong guy, hey man, classic mix up. Hey, while we're here, you know where your coworker might be?
Let's keep waterboarding though. Let's keep threatening him just in case though.
Let's pile up these felony charges while we're at it.
Absolutely awful. That's semifinalist number 1 from October. Our November champion, locked up in the old lockup. We've got 3 trespassers in St. Louis, Missouri, who had to be rescued by police on a Thursday evening after they locked themselves inside a jail cell. Sergeant Charles Wall of the St. Louis Police Department said officers responded to a medium security institution known as the Workhouse after 3 men there called 911 for help. Police freed the men and then immediately arrested them. Wall said that the men faced possible charges for property damage, burglary, and stealing. The jail has sat empty for more than a year. The last inmates were moved out in May of 2022, a year after Mayor Tishara Jones announced they were closing the facility amid allegations of inhumane conditions. Already a place I would never want to get near. A steering committee overseeing the facility's future has been tasked with narrowing down new uses for the site. But while they're working on that, these 3 yahoos decided to sneak in and they decided to just roam around the jail. In fact, they even went into a cell and got stuck inside and then decided, how are we going to get out? Let's call 911. And they got arrested for doing it.
But they got out.
They did get out. That is true.
Yeah, they got out. That's the important aspect of it, right? They did get out of the prison cell that they locked themselves in.
I got to give them credit, the folks who built the jail.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because clearly even shut down, it has that medium security is in full effect.
There were elements of it that were indeed built to last.
Yeah.
Those steel bars,
Dog,
they still work.
They snuck into jail and then got arrested when they were freed from the jail. So stupid.
I know that there are people who are adventurous. I've never wanted to be adventurous that bad. I was break into a jail. This will be fun.
No, I want to avoid jail at all costs,
right.
Closed or not. That was our November winner. And then from December, the Pringles can pooper. Once you poop, the fun don't stop.
This is criminal defense attorney Jack Blakesley from Ohio, who's been suspended for defecating into a Pringles potato chip can and tossing it into the parking lot of a crime victim advocacy center, calling into question his fitness to practice law, the court decided. Blakesley's defense, he said, I didn't target those people. This is just something I do for fun all the time. He said he had a habit of putting his feces in Pringles cans and randomly throwing them from his car. He claimed he pulled the prank at least 10 times that year. But the court didn't buy it and said Blakesley purposely chose the Haven of Hope in Cambridge, Ohio, as his drop zone. He had known the victim advocates at the center for years, was scheduled to see them in court 15 minutes after the deposit, which was caught on video, was made. At the time, Blakesley was representing someone accused in a capital murder case. Blakesley has been an attorney since 1976, had no prior disciplinary action until being suspended by the state Supreme Court for a year for dropping a deuce in a Pringles can and heaving it in the parking lot of somebody he was in court against.
Just absolutely horrendous, man. Just absolutely awful.
And look, when your defense is, actually, this is just a fun little hobby I have, that doesn't help.
No, it does not.
That was not helpful to him or his story.
No. He'd been doing this for decades and had been totally fine. See, I want to know, how long is doing this for a while? How long had he been doing this? Like the entire time he'd been a lawyer? Did something set him over the edge within the last couple years? That's the last piece of context I need for this. I have to know. All right, so that's our December winner. Our 3 semifinalists for this group. The Wrong Man waterboarding got locked up in the old lockup, and our Pringles can pooper. Who you got?
All 3 stories are great, of course. I mean, there are really no losers. Well, they're all losers, but there are no losers when it comes to the Tournament of Failed Champions. My lean, and you try not to have recency bias take too great a hold, but my lean is the Pringles can pooper. And again, the reason is, one, it's gross. Like, sometimes a story is elevated because it's just kind of disgusting. Like, it's not so disgusting, but it's pretty disgusting. I mean, it's a poop story, and poop stories can be really funny. The other part that really gets me with this story is, again, the insistence that, no, I didn't target those people. I do this frequently. This is a monthly occurrence for me to pull a little prank, to have a little fun as a 70-something. This is what I do for my jollies, is I toss Pringles cans full of my own poop to random targets. And the Ohio Supreme Court saying, nah, man. Nah, we don't believe that at all. Even if that's true, we don't believe it.
All right. I think we're going to need to go to a listener vote here, because I'm actually going to go with the Wrong Man waterboarding with my vote.
Okay.
This trio, kidnapped the wrong guy. Bad move number 1. They went as far as to threaten to kill him. They tortured him, waterboard, drill bit to the dome, all of that. Finally said, all right, go find him. Go get him. We're going to take you back to the scene. Go get him. And then after all of that, didn't even have the ability, the clarity to say, maybe we should go with. Maybe we should make sure he actually does it and doesn't rat on us. Because we took his phone, but there are indeed other people in this world who have cell phones.
Yeah.
They went through all of that trouble just to let their captive willingly go rat them out and then eventually lead to their arrest. I got to go with that one. The fact that they went that far only to botch every single step of it leading to their own demise is so brain-numbingly stupid. I have to go with that one.
A lot more to lose for them, too. Like, they face life sentences.
Like freedom.
All this guy lost was the ability to practice law. So we will open it up in the YouTube comments and on the text line, 785-272-9429. We're going to open up this group to your vote. The wrong man waterboarding or the Pringles can pooper. You can text in just one of those words, waterboarding or pooper, perhaps. You can comment with your vote in the YouTube comments. We'll take your votes during this timeout, and we'll accumulate them, and we'll see which way the wind blows for our listeners to choose our first entry into the Fail 4 and What Is Wrong With You.
And you can start the voting now. We'll get to a commercial. Reminder that What Is Wrong With You is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. They cut the metal you need to your specifications, saving you time, money, and material. So never settle when it comes to your metal with Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. Vote now. We'll get you our result from semifinal 1 after the break, and we'll go around the NFL coming up on 580 Sports Talk. All right, well, we're extending the vote deadline to one more vote because we have a tie. We have a dead heat.
Next vote wins. The Pringles can pooper, the wrong man waterboarding. You can text it 785-272-9429. You can post in the YouTube comments if you're watching the live video stream. But we need one more vote. Next
good
vote
stories.
Wins. Yeah, two really good stories. We really closed the year with a bang on What Is Wrong With You. The winning story will advance once again to the Fail 4, which we will then contest on Friday, and we will choose our, let's see, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, our 7th annual What Is Wrong With You champion of the year.
That's wild.
I should be able to do that math in my head instead of counting it out like a 7-year-old, but
it's hard. You know, the year that ends in 0, hard to add around it. Yeah, no, I get that.
But again, 785-272-9429. Which story should win? Send us a text, get us a vote, and we'll crown a champion while we talk a little football.
Yeah, while we await our final vote to team in here, let's go around the NFL from this weekend. Biggest storyline from a long weekend of NFL games.
For me, it has to be what the Ravens did to the 49ers. That was the primetime game on Christmas night, the final statement of the football weekend, if you will. And it was unequivocal that we have kind of wondered, is there really a favorite this year in the NFL? Is there really a team that has taken this season by the throat and will go into January as the team to beat. And I think the Ravens staked their claim in a major way on Monday. They made Brock Purdy look like Mr. Irrelevant, made him look like the last pick in the NFL draft. Intercepted him 4 times. Frankly, it could have been more. Their defense played at an extremely high level. Lamar Jackson is now the MVP frontrunner, which I don't think he ought to be, but we can have that discussion. We can expand on that discussion a little later. But it was a very impressive statement by the Ravens. They do. They look right now like the front runners, like the big dogs in a season where we haven't seen a big dog emerge.
I think that Ravens win was one of the most impressive wins that anyone has had all season long around the NFL. That was significant to me. They dominated them. That second half was not even a game. They just kicked their ass. Outside of that, I think the most important game of the weekend, it was the one that most people were most excited for going into this weekend's games. The Dolphins winning against the Cowboys, 2 very evenly matched teams. That was the battle of they might be frauds, right? Because no one trusted either of those 2 teams. Neither had the Cowboys beat the Eagles, but we also know that the Eagles of right now are not the Eagles of last year, certainly, and not even the Eagles of the first part of this year. The Dolphins against good teams keep losing, and it was a massive win for the Dolphins as well, because now they've got some real cushion for that number 2 seed ahead of Kansas City. They're still on Baltimore's tail and still have a chance of getting that number 1 seed in the AFC playoff picture. So it was massive, massive, massive for them. And whoever ended up losing that game, we were going to come out of it saying, oh, yeah, this team is a fraud. The Cowboys are frauds. Offense looks but it's the same thing as every single year with the Cowboys, right?
Yeah,
or at least in recent years. The offense is good. They run cool stuff. Dak's playing really well. And name a meaningful Cowboy win.
The Eagle game.
Yeah.
They beat up the Eagles. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. The wild card game last year when they won despite Brett Maher missing 14 extra points. That's it. And I thought a few weeks ago this team is a legitimate Super Bowl contender. I don't think you can consider them that right now. I really don't. I think right now the tier list in the NFC, it starts with San Francisco at 1, even with that loss this weekend. And then I think it's Cowboys and still probably the Eagles on tier number 2. I think those are on separate tiers at this point because you can't trust the Cowboys.
No.
You cannot trust them. Any other results from this weekend that really stood out to you or anything that was really of note?
Well, I thought the Browns' continued solid play deserves mention. Joe Flacco's playing really well.
He is.
Developed a really great connection with Amari Cooper, and it's just so surprising to see how well I thought Flacco was done 4 years ago. I thought he looked cooked. And now here he is quarterbacking a team that is not going to be a lot of fun for whoever the AFC South champion is to play in the first round of the playoffs. That's not going to be a fun matchup for the 4 seed at home. They were dominant in beating the Texans. That game wasn't as close as the final score. Texans were down to a backup quarterback, I know. The Jaguars getting punked. It is all going south for Jacksonville right now. I thought that was a good football team, but starting to question that a little bit. They got rolled by Tampa in a way that I certainly did not expect. Those were probably the 2 for me that were the exclamation point results for me, the ones that were the most head turning for me outside of those 2 big games.
I think for me, and to tie the Chiefs back into this, you had a chance to kill the Bills. Yeah. You had a chance to put them out of their misery, to end their year. And now, if the playoffs ended today, do you know who the Chiefs are facing in the wild card round of the playoffs?
Why, it would be the Buffalo Bills, wouldn't it?
It would be the Buffalo Bills.
But of course, the Bills go out on Saturday and show you exactly why they can't be trusted.
That's true.
And mess around and just about lose to a Charger team that is completely mailed in the season.
Yeah, that's
the good news for the Bills. Nobody saw it because it was only on Peacock.
Yeah, nobody did see that game. What? So dumb. I'm not surprised that game went the way it did because you really can't trust the Bills still, even though they are playing pretty well overall. Chargers had the dead cat bounce going with the interim coach. Get a little momentum behind that, rally behind, the assistant coach everyone loves and all that. And he's got a funny name. And okay, yeah, woo, Gift Smith. But I still would not want to play that Bills team right now. I will tell you that much. If I was the Chiefs and my vibes were bad and I'm going up against a team that's got a lot of momentum, that's gotten a number of big wins in the last few weeks, I would not want to be slated to play the Bills right now. But that's what it is shaping up to be for the Kansas City Chiefs if the standings do not change, if we ended up in a position where the playoffs ended today, which at least, they don't end today, or the regular season does not end today, but still the concern is absolutely there. The wild card races in both conferences are wild. In the AFC, it's more so the 7 seed. I think Buffalo is definitely going to get in at this point. It would be quite surprising if they didn't get in at this point. The NFC is a total mess trying to get that final playoff spot at this point, because you've got 3 teams that have won their division, or 3 current division leaders who are in the playoffs for sure. Philly hasn't won their division yet, but Niners, Eagles, Lions, they're all in. Cowboys have clinched a playoff spot. They're currently the number 1 wild card team. I think Tampa is going to finish the job and end up winning that division. They're 8-7. The Falcons are 7-8, and the Falcons are just puke. They are so unfun to watch. So Tampa is probably going to lock up the 4 seed. The Rams, Seahawks, Vikings, Falcons, Packers, and Saints are all within 1 game of each other for 2 playoff spots.
Boy, the Rams aren't going to be a picnic for whoever they end up playing in the playoffs.
Stafford's going crazy, man.
Matthew Stafford is going ballistic. Every week he's balling. And he's playing like he did in the Super Bowl year. It's incredible that Stafford still had this much in the tank, but he is making big time throw after big time throw. And that Rams offense with, Stafford, who's in his 30s and coming off the injury, basically 1 established offensive weapon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe 2 if you really like Tyler Higbee. And this is what it is for them offensively. It's awfully impressive. Seattle obviously has life again. They looked just about done and dusted, and then they rallied to beat Philadelphia. Then they had a rally again and score again in the final minute. First team this century. I think you had to go back to 98. It was one of Dan Marino's last seasons where a team had 2 different quarterbacks lead game-winning drives and score game-winning touchdowns in the final minute in consecutive weeks.
Wow.
Dan Marino did it, and then the next week he got hurt. And I think it was one of the Hewards. I think maybe Damon, one of the Hewards came in relief of Marino and did it. Of course, with the Seahawks the last 2 weeks, it's been Drew Lock and Geno Smith. But they appear to have life. Not sure about Minnesota. They've just lost TJ Hawkinson. Nick Mullins is a disaster.
Sounds like they might bench him again, and it might be Jaron Hall who goes this week.
Yeah, he would be out of concussion protocol. Seattle's probably better than any of those teams that are at 7 and 8.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, the 7 who are in playoff spots feel like the 7 best, but like Seattle's got a tough game at Pittsburgh coming up this week. That's not a gimme after Pittsburgh with Mason Rudolph had a spark and got a big win over Cincinnati this weekend. So it's an interesting race, but none of those teams feel like they can do much against the top of the crop in the NFC.
By the way, talking about how well Stafford has been playing, I am right now looking at the expected points added and completion percentage over expectation. How many more passes are you completing than is expected? For the last, what would this be, 7 weeks now, since week 9, have to have played at least 100 plays. That incorporates most quarterbacks who have played since then. Who are the top 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL, according to that stat, since week 9?
Since week 9?
Your top 5.
Boy, Purdy.
Brock Purdy's number 1.
Tua.
Tua is 7th. He is outside the top 5.
Given to me.
Number 2 is Dak.
Sure.
Number 3, Jordan Love. He is going insane. Unfortunately, Joe Barry is a war criminal and a terrorist, so the Packers barely beat the Panthers, but Jordan Love is playing out of his mind. Number 4 is Matt Stafford. Number 5, barely qualifying, Joe Burrow.
Wow.
That's how close the Bengals were to being that scary this year.
Yeah.
Jake Browning, though, 6th.
Yeah.
He's just outside the top 5.
We got a winner. Our What Is Wrong With You winner is the wrong man waterboarding. That is going to advance to our fail 4. We had a tie-breaking vote.
We appreciate all our voters. We'll get to another semifinal next hour, but first, we got to get to a break here on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, just getting started. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you on this Wednesday afternoon. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today, letting us be a part of your afternoon, wherever you may be. If you're watching on YouTube, my hair has been a disaster all day long, and I'm trying to tuck it up under the hat, and it's been a mess. It's been terrible. All day long, it has been a mess. The worst. We've got plenty to get to coming up throughout the rest of the show today, including some KU football talk this hour. We'll get to the bowl game win. Flag. Again, just throw a flag. Whatever you do today, make sure you throw a flag. Maybe 20 of them to replicate what it was like for KU last night against UNLV.
The Jayhawks set a bowl game record for penalty yardage, breaking the record of a Miami team in a second-tier bowl who legitimately did not care if they got flagged for taunting after every play.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. It was awesome. It was really cool.
Like,
really fun to watch.
If you're going to get 200 penalty yards, it better be doing it like Miami did it against Texas in that Cotton Bowl, where they almost gave Mike Francesa a heart attack on the broadcast because they were just taunting after every play.
So we'll get to the game recap in a moment. Michael,
this may not be a popular opinion. That was the coolest thing ever. Randall Hill running up the tunnel at the Cotton Bowl and coming back doing the 6 guns. Awesome. I don't care. Worth it. I don't care if it's a 100-yard penalty. Do it. It's cool. It's a bowl game. Who cares?
That's true. That last part's certainly true. Michael Swain will also join us for a day-late version of Jayhawk Weekly coming up at the bottom of this hour, too. Plus, our second semifinal for the year in our What Is Wrong With You tournament of failed champions. The summer months, July, August, September, are monthly champions that will go head-to-head in our second semifinal. The dog days of summer, that's right. What we like to call Royals out of contention months. So we'll get to that all this hour. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. And, of course, you can hit us up on YouTube as well. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. We're not doing one and got to go today. A little short on time because of all the What Is Wrong With You. We've got to hear from the Chiefs, a couple of interviews. So I'll give you one or the other, more of an either or for you today. We're not doing that tomorrow. We barely have a show. You can only get rid of one of them from last night's Guaranteed Rate Bowl. You can either get rid of the penalties after every play, or you can get rid of the broadcast crew. The addendum here to make sure you can't cop out is your mute button is broken.
Well, I had a mute button on the official for better part of the first half.
That's true.
Couldn't hear what the penalty was or who it was on or anything like that. Man, Kirk Morrison was as bad a color commentator as I have ever heard last night.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't know basic facts. Every point he tried to make was just, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy listening to him and Beth Mowins last night, but the game took about 4 hours because of all of the penalties, and that I certainly could have done without. So, yeah, I would have cleaned up the flags.
I would probably take the flags out, too. I don't really hate Beth Mowins. I know a lot of people do. Calling the action, she's fine. She did, however, at one point, she got names wrong all night, which she's always been bad at. She also repeated all of KU's road opponents next year as their home opponents, which, how do you do that? How in the world do you do that? Kirk Morrison had clearly never watched a KU game ever before because he kept saying, that they probably didn't intend to do that. I thought they were doing the wrong thing. No, dude, they run these plays and concepts every single week. This is stuff they do all the time. How do you not, when that is your job, every single week, you've got one game you're calling, and you have all week to prepare for it. How do you not watch any film? That just drives me up a wall. And the broadcast was terrible, but the flags, it became unwatchable. We had that many points. How many did we end up with? 85 for the game?
Yeah.
Highest scoring bowl game of the year. 2 years in a row, KU has played in the highest scoring bowl game of the year, at least up to this point. And it was almost unwatchable. The first half, the last 10 minutes of the second quarter, I wanted to turn it off. I didn't, obviously, but I wanted to.
Yeah.
Just play after play, flag after flag after flag. My God, guys.
Yeah, if KU hadn't been rolling, I think I might have turned it off too. It was difficult to watch, which was a bummer because in every other way, that was the perfect bowl game. Like, that is exactly what I want in bowl games. I want points. I want lots of points. I want highlight reel plays from both teams, like ridiculous catches and mazy runs and big time throws and big hits. I want highlights. I want points. I want it to be a little bit stupid in some ways. Like, it was a perfect bowl game other than the flags. The flags really did mar the occasion. And then there was a fight at the end of the game, which was kind of wild.
Yeah, man, what the hell are you doing, UNLV?
Yeah, that was whack.
You're on 13 with 3 seconds left, and they're just trying to run out the clock. They're trying not to embarrass you, brother, because your defense sure as hell didn't show up all night. What a clown.
Yeah, that was weak. That was weak. That was weak on number one's part. And yeah, he's lucky that the way KU reacted was pretty tame. Because that would have pissed me right off if I'd been on the field. And you're what are you trying to get a sack? Like, you got some incentive in your NIL deal? You get a sack in the bowl game? Come on, man.
What a clown.
That was lame.
You're right, though. Like, in terms
it was not as lame as Kobe Bryant flopping on the sideline.
No, dude, that was funny as hell. It was so bad.
It was the worst.
Like,
that might be the worst I saw all season. That was so bad.
Oh, it definitely was.
It was so bad.
It was. I couldn't help but laugh because I thought when they threw the flag on KU, Kobe Bryant picks it off, runs to the sideline. I saw
when the flag came out. I thought they thought they was going to get rewarded.
And I'm talking to Abby. I'm like, how do you throw that on KU? This is a joke. This is ridiculous. Rigged. Clearly rigged. Then they show, well, for what it's worth, I still don't know where the flag was because they didn't call it on Kobe Bryant for flopping. They called it on one of the linemen, and we still didn't see a replay of the actual penalty. But then they zoomed in and showed Bryant getting barely grazed, waiting a second, and then flopping.
It was bad.
Did you see his tweet today, by the way?
No, I did not.
He said something about LeBron James, come help me out, get an extra 15 yards here. Love that tweet from Kobe Bryant.
At least he's self-aware. At least he knows.
Well, yeah, he knew. He definitely knew. But it was the best kind of bowl game, even beyond the fact that I'm obviously thrilled that KU won the game. And we'll get to Jason Bean and Devin Neal, too, in a moment. And the wide receivers. Oh, my God, the wide receivers. But you got two teams that barely had any opt-outs. KU had a couple players going. Gage Keys going in the portal was a big deal because they really struggled at the line early in the game against the run. Austin Booker's probably going to the NFL.
Yeah.
So
Dominic Pooney's getting ready for the Senior Bowl, so he didn't play.
And honestly, like, usually I would feel like, man, you've been such a big part of this. I'd love for you. Nah, man, Dominic Pooney has given everything to this team. He is such an overwhelming success story for this program. Like, go and make it to the NFL, warm up. No issues at all with Dominic Pooney doing that. But for the most part, you had full rosters, very few starters who had entered the portal. Both teams a little bit banged up. KU was starting a couple of young guys at tackle, specifically Calvin Clements. UNLV had one running back, and then they had DeJesus, who's kind of their all-purpose guy.
Fastest guy on the field.
Yeah, that dude's a player. They're going to be good again next year because they're bringing almost everybody back.
And they're keeping their offensive coordinator, who
Marion,
the Brendan Marion, who's kind of the engine that keeps it all running.
So that, and you got a high score. You had two teams that clearly wanted to win, that pulled out all the stops. Awesome game. The football itself, awesome. The refs, crap. The broadcast, crap. But the rest of it, a lot of fun. Jason Bean, I saw Kevin Flaherty from 24/7 tweet this earlier. Said it wouldn't be the worst idea if KU came up with some sort of award they gave out every year named for Jason Bean. Like Team Perseverance Award. And frankly, yes. Absolutely yes. I did not remember this till I saw it today. It might have also been from Kevin Flaherty. Do you know who Jason Bean committed to when he transferred from North Texas to KU? And his first season was Leipold's first season. Remember, Lance took over in the spring. Do you know who Jason Bean committed to?
He committed to Beatty?
No.
Or Miles?
No. He committed to, what was his name? Not Emmett Smith. What was his name?
Emmett Thomas?
Emmett Thomas. It was Thomas?
The interim?
Yeah. He committed to KU's interim head coach prior to spring ball that year. Emmett Jones. It was Emmett Jones. That's
Emmett
his last
Jones.
name. Emmett Jones.
Not the former chief Emmett Thomas.
A transfer committed to an interim head coach, started for most of a season, struggled, got hurt and got Wally pipped, stayed for another year, played a bunch because Jalen Daniels got hurt, ended his career or ended what we thought was going to be his career. We talked to Michael Swain about it before the Liberty Bowl. We heard from everybody else. It was over for Jason Bean. He was going to walk away from football after the Liberty Bowl. Ended his career, we thought, on what would have been the most sour note possible. That failed 2-point conversion attempt at the end of the Liberty Bowl where he airmailed the throw and KU loses to Arkansas in a heartbreaker. But then he comes back, and he knew he was going to be a backup. He came back because he wanted to be a part of this team. He was sold on the vision, and he wanted to be a part of it for one more year. And then his number got called again. So he didn't have to come back, and he did. Then he saved the season. He was a major key, and in fairness, also was potentially going to be one of the biggest reasons KU lost to Oklahoma. But then on a dime, one drive completely changed the narrative. Yeah. From like, hey, he's a good backup. He's a better backup than most teams have. You're probably not going to win a whole lot with him. That drive against Oklahoma, and I was having this discussion on Twitter last night, changed the perception of one single player more than maybe any other player and moment in KU athletics history next to David McCormick in the Final Four. Like, those are the two. We remember McCormick senior year. Man, I don't know. McCormick, can you win with him? Can you win with him as your big man? He was the best player in the NCAA tournament. And he should have been Final Four most outstanding player over Ochai. And I love Ochai Abaji.
Yeah.
Like, that's what Jason Bean did for himself. And then they go set a KU and Big 12 record with 6 touchdown passes. He leaves. I don't know if you saw this. Jason Bean leaves KU second all time in touchdown passes in KU history.
That's amazing.
Now, that number is really low, 38. And the gap between second and Todd Reesing is like 3 more careers for Jason Bean.
Reesing's got it in the upper deck for sure.
But like that, he didn't even have to come back for this year. We didn't think he was for 2 weeks after the Liberty Bowl before he announced he was coming back. For him to do that, and you could have given offensive most outstanding player to either Luke Grimm or Lawrence Arnold, and it would have been earned last night too, because those guys played out of their freaking minds. They were unreal last night. But for Jason Bean to do that and to mean that much to KU, like I can't wait someday to tell my kids, like, you will never understand what it was like watching the Bean Man play. It was unbelievable. And I don't think he'll be a Ring of Honor guy probably, but he should be memorialized by KU somehow because he is exactly the kind of player that Lance Leipold and company have tried to build this rebuild around.
Now, the best college football stories are the cult heroes, aren't they?
Yes.
They're the guys who, they're the program guys. They're the guys who stick with it. And sometimes they're guys who are great when times are rough. And sometimes they're the guys that were great when times started to get good and were a big reason that times started to get good. And even if they don't put him on the Ring of Honor or anything like that, I don't know how you could argue that they should, but like Jason Bean's going to live long in the memory. Jason Bean's got a real legacy at KU, and that's a pretty remarkable thing. That's a pretty special thing. He was outstanding. Aside from all 3 of the interceptions were really bad. Let's be honest about those. Those were all terrible.
The first one was like, all right, that's a heat check. Like, all right, whatever. And the second. Then the third, it was all right. Now, I was really worried after that third one.
I'm sure.
2 dudes named Kobe saved the game. It was Kobe Bryant's corner blitz sack.
Yeah.
And then it was Kobe Baines falling on Daniel Highshaw's fumble.
Yeah.
Those 2 plays saved the game for KU.
So back to Bean. He balled out. The wide receiver group played terrific. Luke Grimm, 4 catches, 3 go for touchdowns. Lawrence Arnold had 3 TDs. Quentin Skinner made a spectacular catch on a deep ball. I have watched a lot of college football games this year where I have come away thinking about a team. I would take all of their wide receivers, their wide receiver room right this second. I would take it over the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, I have watched Washington and thought that.
Yep.
I have watched Oregon and thought that. I have watched LSU and thought that. I have watched Florida State and I have thought that. I have watched Texas.
Ohio State.
And I have thought that. And last night I watched Kansas and I thought that. I thought I'd take all 3 of those guys right now. Like, Luke Grimm would be wide receiver 2 for the Chiefs.
How many contested catches have the Chiefs made all year? Is it more than KU's receivers made last night?
In the first half?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Those dudes were balling. It was incredible. And it was needed, too, because that's what was there. Obviously, UNLV's game plan was sell out, stop the run. And they limited Devin Neal, and they limited the quarterback run for a good chunk of the game. But as the game wore on, KU was able to have some success. That 99-yard drive that was capped off by another long touchdown pass, that was so much about getting the run game going, getting the rushing attack, and it made the play action pass pop on that 4th and 1 that really gave KU the breathing room they were going to need the rest of the way. So just an outstanding work by that team. An incredible finish. 9 wins in a season. They've only had that many wins in a season 3 times in my life. And I think it's 7 ever.
6.
Yeah. 6 times they've won that many games in a season. And like 4 of them in the modern era of college football, with all due respect to the 1905 Kansas Jayhawks or whoever it was who went 10-0.
I believe it was 1900. I believe it was Fielding Yost.
I have it up in front of me. It was 1905.
1905.
Doc Kennedy.
Okay.
Although I will say Sports Reference only goes back to 1901. So maybe the 1900 team did do it, and I'm not looking at it, but the 1905 Jayhawks went 10-1 with old Doc Kennedy leading the way. He also guided them to a 9-0 season in 1908. And then he had to wait a long time till the next 9-win season. 1968, the Orange Bowl year under Pepper Rogers. 10 wins in 95, the Aloha Bowl season with Glenn Mason. 12 wins in the Orange Bowl year in 07. And then, of course, 9-4 this year. It's a hell of an accomplishment. And the best is yet to come because they're bringing back 8 offensive starters, including Devin Neal, as we found out last night.
Yeah, Devin Neal coming back. I can't believe it. I am genuinely shocked.
Yeah,
and
me too.
I'm thrilled. I could not be happier because assuming he stays healthy, and with running backs, it's always a worry. He's under 800 yards and just 8 touchdowns away from both KU records, rushing touchdowns and rushing yards. And if KU has another bowl-winning season and he gets another all Big 12 honor and he sets both of those records, I'll go out on a limb and say it. I don't think we're talking Ring of Honor from Devin Neal. I think we're talking putting number 4 on the side of the building. I think that's the kind of career that he is having and the kind of trajectory he's on. That's huge.
If he goes 3,000-yard seasons and KU has one of their best seasons in program history, if they can follow that up next year with another bowl year, another 8-9 wins, which honestly ought to be the expectation next year, and he's a Lawrence High chesty Lion, yeah, that's retired number stuff.
Put number 4 on the side of the building.
And we have long talked about this, and I know you and I see eye to eye on this, and I think most people who love both college football and the NFL probably see eye to eye. Look, if you're a running back, go get your NFL money while you can get your NFL money.
Yep.
That's typically a no-brainer. So for Devin Neal to pass that up, one, suggests somebody came up with a nice little NIL bag to keep Devin Neal around in Lawrence. Good for him. Secondly, there's something beyond the money that motivates Devin Neal to play the game and do the things he wants to do. And he hasn't accomplished everything he came to KU to accomplish, which is a remarkable statement.
2 real quick things. 1, we should toot our own horn and take a victory lap because we've been right about the KU wide receivers for 2 years now. Not everybody thought that this trio of Grimm and Skinner and Arnold was those dudes. We were right.
Yes.
From week 1 of last season to now, we have been right about that group from the very beginning, and I'm going to keep hyping that up.
I was on the Luke Grimm hype train going back to the end of the Liberty Bowl. I've been tooting that horn for a very long time. So,
he is that dude.
It's validating to see him have another big bowl game performance.
And I'm happy that KU got to send off guys like Mason Fairchild, Kansas guy, Kenny Logan, who could have left. He certainly could have. A lot of people expected him to leave when Les Miles got fired. He stuck around. Those guys who stuck around, who played, who had been through a lot, so cool to get to send those guys off with a win. Guys like Mike Nowitzki, who transferred in, who were a big part of it. Really glad they got to be sent off with a win. Obviously, Jason Bean, top of the list. We have to get to a break. Michael Swain will join us for Jayhawk Weekly later, but first, we've got our second What Is Wrong With You semifinal next on 580 Sports Talk. It's time for our second semifinal for our 2023 What Is Wrong With You Tournament of Failed Champions here on 580 Sports Talk. Our first semifinal winner from earlier on in the show, that was the Wrong Man Waterboarding, winning by a single vote in our first semifinal. Tells you how good that first group was. Now we are moving on to the dog days of the summer. Our July, August, and September monthly champions are our semifinals for this month. We will start with the month of July and the fake firefighter.
42-year-old Andrew DeBoer arrested.
Oh my God, this is so funny.
For creating a fake fire department and posing as a firefighter. Investigators recovered during a search of his home a fire investigator ID card, badges, decals, and uniforms with patches for the Santa Muerte Fire Department. There's one thing wrong with the Santa Muerte Fire Department. It is not real.
Oh, my God.
They also found firearms, soft body armor, and a duty belt. Again, Andrew DeBoer is 42 years old. Deputies also seized a Ford F-350 with emergency lights and fire decals on the front hood and rear tailgate. This man made a website for his Santa Muerte Fire Department, but it listed an address that belongs to a shopping center containing a UPS store and a hair salon. Also had a LinkedIn page with an altered photo of a U.S. Forest Service firefighter. And apparently he was pulling people over as a fireman. And he had been pulling this scam in San Bernardino, Riverside, Los Angeles, and Orange counties.
Very populated places.
Yes.
All of them.
Run around. Hi, I'm firefighter Andrew with the Santa Muerte Fire Department. Just checking in. See if you got any fires to report. Need me to put them out. My siren goes, wee, wee.
I can understand in some situations, and I believe this came up when we had this story, where a firefighter might have a weapon on them for one reason or another. I don't think firefighters are carrying around long guns, though.
No.
This dude was packing rifles.
Yes, he had
big old guns.
They got like the table, the paraphernalia table that police love to take a picture of after they make a bust. Yeah, there's like 10 long guns on this. I'm going to shoot the fire with a rifle.
This is just so preposterous.
We said at the time, it sounds like something an 8-year-old would come up with.
Yes.
Like a fake fire department with fake badges and a fake siren.
This dude gave so much money to Custom Ink to make all this happen.
Really good story.
Oh my God, I love this one. This one is so freaking funny. All right, our next semifinalist from August, the Oblivious Boyfriend. So I believe this was from when I was out of town. We had this.
Yeah, you were out of town. Kyle Manthe helped me pick this one as a daily winner. We're gonna bring up Kyle again a little later on in the show. This is a guy in San Antonio whose girlfriend asked to meet at a nearby gas station off Culebra Road in San Antonio, 11 p.m. Sunday. When he arrived, his girlfriend was there with a group of guys who opened fire on him. He was able to drive off and did not get shot. Then at 3 a.m., there was a shooting at a home near Culebra Road, and police said when they arrived, they found the same man with 2 gunshot wounds to his leg because his girlfriend called and told him to meet her at her house. And when he showed up, a group of men started shooting at him. Like, obviously, it is like, what is wrong with you could very easily be like this girlfriend who's trying to obviously put a hit out on the boyfriend. But we had to flip it and say, dude, what are you thinking?
Like, there's no way this ends well for you, man. This is stepping on the rake and then turning around and stepping on another one. Like, there's no way this is going to end up well for you, my man. Don't ever go back to this woman.
No.
Even same night. I'm going to tell you something, man. Man to man, it ain't that good.
No.
You might think it's that good. Brother, it ain't that good.
No, there's no 3 a.m. you up text in the world that is worth answering from somebody who 4 hours earlier tried to have you killed. Well, yeah, must have just been a coincidence. That was wild. Maybe we can talk about that after I go over to her house at 3 a.m.
Oh my God.
What a moron.
What a moron. What a complete idiot. And finally, our last semifinalist in this group, the human hamster wheel. Love this one from September.
Good old Reid Bellucci, a Florida marathoner, was spotted 70 nautical miles off Tybee Island, Georgia, in what is called a homemade hydropod. He claimed he was headed to London in a hamster wheel-like contraption afloat as a result of wiring and buoys. When Coast Guard officers told Bellucci they were cutting short his, quote, manifestly unsafe voyage, Bellucci threatened to kill himself with a knife and claimed to have a bomb on board, which he did not. 3 days later, Bellucci surrendered. This is not the first time he's tried to go across the Atlantic Ocean in his little human hamster wheel. He did get 25 miles up the coast trying to get from Florida to New York, but he was trying to get from Georgia to London in a human hamster wheel.
Which, we had a picture of this. It's just a cylinder with a metal grating.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't keep food. You couldn't keep you couldn't keep anything on this.
You couldn't keep water out.
No! Those buoys are eventually going to get overwhelmed, brother. Oh, my God.
He thought he was just going to run. I'm a marathoner. I'm in good shape. I'm just going to run from Georgia to London.
Oh, my God.
In a can.
Yeah, in a cracked open can. So funny. I think this might be our strongest group of semifinalists.
Yeah, it's really good.
I think I might go that far. My vote, though, as dumb as that guy is, and he's really dumb, and I love that story to pieces, and as stupid as the guy who got shot twice by his girlfriend's goons, this man invented his own fire department and pulled people over at 42 years old.
42 years old, and he invented a fire department. I'm with the Santa Muerte Fire Department. Yeah, what's your real job, big guy? Like,
dude, it's just so stupid.
Why he invented a fire department?
Oh my God, that gets my vote.
Yeah, living every 7-year-old's dream. When I grow up, I want to be a firefighter.
Oh
yeah, the fake fireman. I think, yeah.
I love that story so much.
Let's move him on to the fail four.
The fake firefighter, he advances to tomorrow's failed four in our 2023 What Is Wrong With You Tournament of Champions, which is brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. They cut the metal you need to your specifications, saving you time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to metal with Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. We'll talk Jayhawks and a guaranteed rate bowl win with Michael Swain up next on 580 Sports Talk. Joining us a day later than normal since he was covering the Guaranteed Rate Bowl and, well, frankly, because we weren't on the air, we're now joined by Michael Swain, who covers the Kansas Jayhawks better than anyone for Fog.net and 24/7 Sports. Go check him out on Twitter at mswain247, and, of course, check out his great work covering all things KU at Fog.net. And, Michael, I've got to give you a congratulations. Since you were at the game, you did not have to listen to the broadcast of the bowl, so I'm very happy for you, my friend.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored that I didn't have to deal with no replays. Oh, wait, we didn't get any replays in the stadium either, but I'm very thankful that I did not have to, listen to this broadcast. I'm about to start watching the game back here later this afternoon, so I'll have to get a little taste of it myself. But it might be a time where maybe I'll have it on mute so you watch the game to see kind of more of what happened, but I'll also have the ability to rewind. So that should be nice.
I know you had your post-game video, which everyone can go find at Fog.net. You can find on the Fog YouTube channel as well. You did your post-game video from down on the field at Chase Bank Field. Did you get to bring home a penalty flag?
I didn't. And I'll tell you what, I was looking around trying to figure out, all right, what can I take? And I'm like, well, maybe a little bit of the goalpost. Nope, they took those down pretty quickly. I was looking for, maybe a Guaranteed Rate Bowl sign. I couldn't find any of those. So I'm kind of going back empty-handed, which is kind of a bummer, especially after a game like that where I feel like everyone deserves something extra special for dealing with that for 4 hours.
Outside of the absolutely horrific work by the officials all game long and by the broadcast crew, the football itself I thought was a blast. Dan and I were saying earlier, this was the exact kind of bowl game that everyone should want, because we ended up with two teams that had very few opt-outs. We had two teams that really wanted to win this game. You could tell KU wanted to win. You could tell that UNLV wanted to win. Great effort on both sides. And for KU to look so good early on offense, barring the penalties, then to slump and have Jason Bean go through, unfortunately, the full Jason Bean experience, only to surge back in front late. It was just so reminiscent of so many KU games this year. And it honestly feels, Michael, like no better way to send off this group of seniors than with a game like that.
Yeah, so true, right? I don't know if we're going to see the did we really get beat that bad chart, but I'll tell you what, I think UNLV really did get beat that bad. And there were just kind of those few one-off plays where you saw the mental mistakes that we've seen from KU so often this year. And look, as it pertains to the officiating, personal fouls and things of that nature, that stuff I roll my eyes at. What are we doing here, right? There was nothing super malicious. And if anything, the most malicious thing that happened all game was the number one trying to go after Jason Bean when he's trying to kneel it down to end the game. That was the most cheap shotty thing that happened all game, and there's not too much that's going to happen there. But I think KU did lose its composure. And I think that's a big thing here where when you've got your head coach, for lack of a better word, making a scene on the sidelines and going after officials and calling the white hat over multiple times to let him have it, players see that and players take their cues from their head coach. And so I think that was something that, if Lance Leipold thinks back, maybe he'll think, maybe I could have done this a little bit differently. But as it pertains, right, to the football itself, this was a great game. And it's a bummer because there wasn't much flow. And this would have been a game of the week, game of bowl season, if there hadn't been all these stoppages and all the pauses and all the lack of rhythm, because UNLV is a good football team. And they were able to do some things to put pressure on KU, right? They do a very good job of getting after the quarterback, and they did that. And I thought that the reason UNLV won their 9 games, they're the reason they were in this game for a portion of it. And on the other hand, you can still say that this is a game that probably shouldn't have been close because you take into account the free yards, right? KU gets off the field on a 3rd down and, a terrible alleged face mask happens. And that's one of those you actually saw replays of, and that was not a face mask. And that allows UNLV to get a new set of downs. They score the next play. So I think this is a game for KU, right? Obviously they win. It's big for them in that regard, but it's also one of these, right, where you feel like KU probably could have won by even more. And that's saying something because they almost put up 50 points.
We're chatting with Michael Swain, who covers the Kansas Jayhawks for Fog.net and 24/7 Sports, joining us for a day-late edition of Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk. Go check out Fog.net for all of Michael's fantastic coverage of the Kansas Jayhawks, and go be a VIP too. It is absolutely 100% worth the price, as we tell you every single week. Jason Bean and his story from transferring in and committing, and I didn't even remember this detail till your coworker over at 24/7, Michael, and your podcast co-host Kevin Flaherty put this on Twitter. He committed, Jason Bean did, as a transfer to Emmett Jones. He didn't even commit to Lance Leipold. He came in with an interim coach in place. We didn't know who was going to be the coach when Jason Bean announced his transfer. He loses the job. He gets Wally pipped his first year at the program, sticks around. His second to last season ends on that sour note in the Liberty Bowl. He comes back. He saves this season for KU. And, you know, Ring of Honor or not, record books or not, every KU fan is going to remember Jason Bean's career. What can you tell us, and what's sort of your perspective on the final chapter for him and what he was able to accomplish on his way out the door at KU?
Well, I think everything about this game is like the ultimate Jason Bean game, right? You think about it, it's kind of a slow start. There are moments that you're just thinking, what in the world was he throwing at, or what was he seeing at? And in the end, he breaks a record. You know, like that's kind of just been the Jason Bean experience over really the last two seasons. And it's so hard to really read into that first year because they didn't even have an offense installed. So over the last 2 years, you've seen a player that can at times look like one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12. And then he'll have, you know, every single game, there's kind of 4 or 5 plays that you scratch your head and you're like, what in the world? Sometimes it's a throw across his body over the middle that goes to Mason Fairchild for a huge first down. Other times it's an interception to the other team. But at the end of the day, the numbers that Jason Bean put up are going to have him in the record books, right? The second most touchdown passes by a Kansas quarterback ever. You know, you think about the amount of times he started over the last 3 years and the amount of times he hasn't started, and yet he's going to finish with the 7th most passing yards in KU history. And then, of course, there's the bowl game record that he sets with his 6 passing touchdowns. So, you know, he's someone that I think in terms of the on-field product is probably going to get overshadowed because it's the era he played in, and it's the era being that of, you know, Jalen Daniels, if in the end he is able to get healthy and do the things that I think we all know he can. But at the end of the day, Jason Bean's a guy that I think is the reason why Kansas is in this bowl game and the reason that Kansas wins this bowl game. If Jason Bean does not come back to Kansas, this season looks a lot different. And if Jason Bean does not have the mentality that he does have, it's different because he could have pouted all off season like, oh, well, I'm back and I'm not going to get the chance to start. I'm not going to play much, but, you know, at least I'm back. No, he didn't do that. He went in, he worked. I think that's one of the reasons why his teammates love him so much because they understood what Jason signed up for, which was not a lot of glory. And then it turned out his opportunity came, he was ready, and he answered the bell every single week. So I think for him, right, is kind of, if you want to talk about legacy, right, and that's what I wrote about, is kind of a guy that is going to be a record holder at Kansas and is going to be someone that's loved by his teammates and loved by his coaches and has set a great example for other players to come through Kansas of how to handle yourself when you're playing and when you're not playing. And I think that is so huge as this program kind of continues to solidify.
Michael Swain of Fog.net, 24/7 Sports, joining us here on the Flooding Place Wine and Spirits hotline for Jayhawk Weekly on 580 Sports Talk. Michael, gracious enough to join us today in the wake of KU's win in the Guaranteed Rate Bowl last night. Typically joins us on Tuesdays at 4:35 here on 580 Sports Talk. Check him out on Twitter at mswain247. Michael, Devin Neal's coming back. How surprised were you to hear that news? And what do you know about the circumstances behind that decision?
Well, I was surprised to see it come out before the game. Maybe that's how I'll frame it. I think that was something that maybe, you know, the player might want to do himself in the coming days after a season ends. But I think it's huge for Kansas. You think about the running back room, you know, Daniel Highshaw is a good running back and someone that can go and play other places, and we'll see what he decides to do. But, you know, Devin Neal is just a different caliber. And I think you've seen that over the second half of this season where Highshaw has been good at times, but the level of consistency that Devin Neal has played at is just incredible. And I think for Devin, I think this comes down to a few things where obviously NFL is his end goal, but for a guy that grew up rooting for Kansas and has stuck through it all, the opportunity to be the all-time leading rusher at the school you grew up rooting for, the school that is in your hometown, that is such a special thing and something that I think is really important to Devin. And then you add in the fact that Cade can return so much production on offense, and the coaching staff is working really hard to fill in some other gaps at other parts of the team, that this is a team that has the ability to go and compete for a Big 12 title next year. You look at the schedule, and it looks a lot different than the one KU had this year and a lot more manageable than the one KU had this year. And look, if KU is able to compete at the top of the Big 12 next year, that automatically means they're in the conversation for the college football playoff. Like, these are big time things and big time stages for college football fans and for college football players. So I think all these things kind of wrap into something where I think, I'm not going to speak for Devin, he'll speak on his own time, but I think it's something where you can look at and say, man, there's a huge special opportunity for a special player and a special human to achieve something really cool. And so I think that's going to come down to being one of the big things, and the pro ranks will still be there. And I don't think another season is going to tank his draft stock. I don't think it's going to impact it all that much, but I think it's just one of these deals where it's kind of the perfect scenario for a guy, and it seems like he's going to take advantage of it.
Jim Zebrowski called the plays last night for KU. He was promoted to co-offensive coordinator the same day that Andy Kotelnicki's move to Penn State was announced. What are the chances that Zebrowski remains the offensive coordinator moving forward, or is that something that, not remains the offensive coordinator because obviously they hired Jeff Grimes, but what are the chances he remains involved in a similar capacity next year, remains maybe as involved with the play design to have a smooth transition between the Kotelnicki and the Grimes eras?
Yeah, so Jeff Grimes will call plays, and it's a very collaborative effort on the offensive coaching staff in terms of creating a game plan. I want to choose my words carefully here, but this wasn't one guy in Andy Kotelnicki, right? There's a staff of guys. You think about even someone like Matt Lubick, who is battling leukemia right now, but was still active in helping KU game plan every week. Like, there is a group of coaches there that were helping come up with these game plans every week. And yes, Andy Kotelnicki is a great offensive mind and was good at calling plays, but this wasn't one guy. And I think you saw that yesterday, where the KU offense is still the KU offense. And I think that's what this is going to come down to. So I think someone like Zebrowski is still going to be able to have a big say, just like Terrence Samuel will have a big say, and just like Scott Books and the say he'll be able to have. And now it's just going to be about, I think for Grimes, the timing of which he came in is perfect because he got to watch bowl practices and see how KU does it and see how KU game plans and preps. And so he knows now what he really is stepping into, where if this hire was done a week from now, 2 weeks from now, right, it's a little bit different of a situation where spring practice then is the first time for that to happen. So I think there's still going to be very much a collaborative effort. Jeff Grimes will be the guy that is calling the plays at the end of the day, but I think Jim Zebrowski is still going to have a huge say just like he had before, and he's someone that I think is a very key member of this offensive coaching staff.
That was a very good answer to a question I phrased very poorly and almost wrote Jeff Grimes completely out of existence. So thank you for the good answer there. One quick basketball question for you. KU's got Wichita State on Saturday. They played Yale last week, kind of sleptwalked through most of it, dominated the second half, ended up winning the game. How much did Nick Timberlake need a game like the Yale game?
A ton, because he's someone that I think we've talked about this on the show, I feel like every week, because he's someone that's been thinking too much. And you can just see it. Like, the player you see in those mixtapes of him at Towson is not the guy you've seen at camp. And now you don't want that exact same person because that's a high volume shooter. And you've got other guys on your team that can do other things that diversify your offensive portfolio. But KU needs Nick Timberlake to be at his best for KU to do the things that are the expectation at Kansas, which is make a Final Four and win a national title. So a game like that going into a time off is interesting because I think Timberlake would have loved to go play 4 days later and play 3 days after that and get into this rhythm of playing consistently where you can build off of that performance. Now this would be a really big test because there's been time off. He's been able to go home, hang out with family, right? Get away from basketball. And then he's going to come back and there's going to be the Wichita State game. And that's going to be a great barometer, I think, for where Timberlake is. Because if he comes out and plays like he did against Yale, then you're feeling pretty good about the way things are trending heading into conference play. And if he comes out and looks like he did over the previous kind of 3 weeks, then you're kind of looking at the Yale game and saying, man, that was kind of a weird game, and maybe it's one that's a one-off. So for me, I look ahead and I say, really, this Wichita State game is going to tell me a lot, because it's just going to determine the rotation, because KU will have basically a week in between that Wichita State game and a conference game. And we know Bill Self, right? Conference games start, it's winning time. And it is cutting the rotation of the guys that will help you win the basketball game. And if Timberlake is able to show that he can be one of those guys, he'll play. But if he has a bad game against Wichita State, it's back to the square one where he's going to get, first half minutes guaranteed. And then from there, it's all based on how he plays.
The best coverage of all things Kansas Jayhawks is authored by Michael Swain. You can find his work at fog.net and 24/7 Sports. You can also and should also follow him on Twitter, where his handle is at mswain247. He joins us every week for Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Michael, we appreciate it. Know the schedule's been quite busy the last couple of days, but we appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you next week.
Of course, guys. Looking forward to it. Talk to you then.
That's Michael Swain from fog.net. Unfortunately, all three of us were flagged about 14 times during that interview.
They almost flagged me for forgetting Jeff Grimes existed in the middle of my sentence.
Hey, but you corrected it before I had to jump in, because I was.
I remembered that he exists. I just phrased it very poorly.
4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk's coming up after the news. Hey now, halfway home on this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzynski and Dan Lucero here with you. Thanks so much for stopping by and hanging out with us today. Coming up here in this hour, we've got some more Chiefs to get to. Well, they really sucked on Christmas Day. Hope you didn't go to the game. We were talking about that while we were watching it. The weather was nasty, cold. Who knows how much family you were getting to hang out with. Probably had to get there at 8 a.m. to be able to get in and tailgate. Tailgate was probably cold and nasty. And then they freaking lost and looked like butt.
Yeah, it wasn't just they got beat. We have discussed multiple times this season, hey, is that the worst they've played in the Mahomes Reid era? And that's not good to have multiple instances of games where that's what you're saying. But that's kind of where this team's been at. That's the reality of who the Chiefs have been in 2023, that they are significantly below the championship standard that we've come to expect.
So we'll get to the Chiefs coming up here in just a moment. We've got our third What Is Wrong With You semifinal in our year-long 2023 Tournament of Failed Champions. January through March are finalists that we will get to coming up here in just a moment. We will also hear from Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. We'll hear about Fitz's Christmas and, of course, their big plans for covering the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Have you seen some of the lead up to this game? It's been unbelievable.
The trophy is like a toaster. There's two slots for actual Pop-Tarts in the football at the top of the trophy.
Kellis Robinette, friend of the program from the Wichita Eagle, reported earlier that the edible mascot will be frosted strawberry.
That seems about right.
Yeah.
Like I would have been surprised. I think that's probably the most like common Pop-Tart flavor.
Sure.
Like when you think of a Pop-Tart, you probably think of that strawberry one. So I'm not surprised. The s'more one though is much, much better.
Dave Doran's been having a day. First of all, there was a moment in which the official handler of the Pop-Tarts Bowl trophy came out with latex gloves on to not smudge it. And while they were doing promo shots with the two head coaches and the trophy today, she was trying to adjust it very delicately. Dave Doran just puts his big greasy mitts all over the thing and moves it. So kind of defeating the purpose of the latex gloves. He also was asked, what do you think of the trophy? Dave Doran says, quote, beautiful, man. Look forward to seeing that thing at the end of the game. It's really nice. I'm still wondering where the shot of bourbon on that thing goes, though. The reporter then replied with, well, it's 9 a.m. So, and then Dave Doran said, well, you can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning, right?
Wisdom. That's real wisdom.
We got a real chance this game is going to be a banger. The same way the first Duke's Mayo Bowl was, where there was so much mayo-based content. We got a lot of Pop-Tart and apparently alcohol-based content with this one.
We got tremendous amount of Pop-Tart content.
So we will get to all of that coming up this hour, plus your texts, 785-272-9429, plus your YouTube comments. YouTube channel is called 580 Sports Talk, where we are live video streaming the show today. Be on alert. We've already needed to go to one listener tiebreaker vote today for a What Is Wrong With You semifinal, so be ready. We might need another one coming up this hour. By the way, I didn't ask, best Christmas present or presents you got this weekend? I know we were both celebrating the holiday.
I got a lot of reading material. Excited to page through some books. Got some cash, gift cards. You know
nice,
the whole deal. I do like this hoodie. I'm wearing the people on the stream can see it's the K-State, the script Wildcats from the 70s that has kind of come back into vogue thanks to the basketball team the last couple of years. My wife got this for me.
It's very
purple.
Nice.
It's from our friends at Home Field Apparel. It is exceedingly comfortable. I want to live in this hoodie.
Their hoodies are so comfy.
They are, man.
Every single one of them is so great.
I am up now. We have extolled the virtues of our friends at Home Field Apparel, our friends who do not pay us, but probably should, because at this point I am up to 29 shirts and 6 sweatshirts from this company.
Yeah, I've got, oh man. I don't know if I'm quite to that many, but I've got a lot. They're so nice.
Yeah, they're nice. They're fun. They always draw like nice comments from people when you wear them.
They really do. They really do. I like the script. That's a good look. I got my Jordan Love jersey. Was very excited about that. My wife's family got me some really nice stuff. My family did a great job. Had a couple of hats that came in. My sister has gotten me a minor league baseball team hat for the last 3 or 4 Christmases now. I believe it's the Cedar Rapids Kernels this year. With a corn cob that looks like a bat. It's very cool, very creative. A lot of pun action there.
Okay.
It was a very Packers heavy Christmas for me. My wife got me a retro Packers like dark green sweatshirt from the mid 90s, 95, I think. My younger sister got me one of those peak super 1990s sweatshirts that has the whole team's face, like group of faces on it.
Yeah.
From the Super Bowl team that beat the Patriots.
Yeah.
In Super Bowl 31. So yeah, very Packer heavy Christmas for me, but I'm never going to complain about that.
No,
ever. So hope you guys had a great Christmas as well. I know the two of us certainly did, and appreciate you again post-holiday coming in and hanging out with us on this Wednesday afternoon. We talked a little bit earlier about the intangible issues for the Chiefs. I told you that I don't think that my biggest issue, or what I perceive to be the biggest issue for this team, is going to be fixed or can be fixed this year. And the biggest issue is Patrick Mahomes, nor the coaching staff, or frankly, the players in themselves, trust a play to be made through the air. They just don't. And Travis Kelce cannot do the things that he could do even 2 or 3 years ago because he's an older tight end. It happens. And he's still putting up crazy numbers.
Yeah.
But he's the only reliable weapon in that area that you have. The offensive line has not lived up to the elite billing. I think they've been good this year, but we expected them to be, top 5, top 3, maybe top 1 in the NFL. I don't think they've played to that level. The wide receivers are bad. We know that. Rashee Rice has been very good, but he's a rookie, and there are rookie growing pains that come with that. So to me, the issue is trust. And until we get maybe a breath of fresh air in the coaching staff, or we get a new group of receivers that get pushed into that room, I don't think you're rebuilding that trust now 15 games into a 17-game regular season. You, though, have additionally another intangible thing that is plaguing the Chiefs right now.
Yeah, we could talk about X's and O's and things on the field that do feel like tantalizingly close to fixable. Like, just don't turn the ball over. They had 7 seconds of football where their brains shut off against the Raiders, and that's why they lost. 7 seconds of dumb football leading directly to 14 Raiders points. And that was the ball game. And it's been the case all 5 of their 6 losses. The Denver game, they turned it over 5 times, but it's not as though there's one play or one turning point moment in the game where you could say, boy, if that was different, the Chiefs most likely win. You could say that about 5 of their 6 losses this year, that if this doesn't happen, the Chiefs, even with all of their faults and issues as a team, are more likely than not to have won that game. And they have not, and that's why they're 9-6 and not 14-1. Like, you can always, as Travis Kelce talked about today on his podcast, as Patrick Mahomes talked about in his media availability today, as Andy Reid talked about, you can always try and be more prepared, more focused, spend more time practicing, more effort to get the X's and O's stuff down, the tangible stuff down, catch more passes, line up correctly, all of that. Like, that is achievable, it feels like. Every week that passes and they don't do those things, then you start to wonder if maybe that's just the personality of this team. Maybe they are just the can't get right team of the season. Sometimes it happens. But the intangible stuff has stood out to me ever since the Bills game, and the way the Chiefs responded to Kadarius Toney's offside penalty, responded to losing that game. What I think we are seeing here is a team that is confronting its own mortality, and not in a literal sense. Like, they're not out there, Mahomes in the huddle, like, you guys ever think about death? Like in the Barbie movie? Like, that's not what's happening here. But in a football sense. And I think for Travis Kelce in particular, in a career sense, he is very much a player being confronted with his own mortality. The understanding that you only have but so many chances in your career to win a championship. And this season represented an opportunity for the Chiefs to win another Super Bowl, to win 3 titles in 5 years and join rarefied company. When you think about groups of teams that have won 3 rings largely together, most of them got nicknames. Like, most of them are historic,
Mhm.
multiple Hall of Famers, both sides of the ball, like the all-timers. You think about the Packers of the 60s and the first 2 Super Bowls, and you think about the Cowboys and the Steelers and their dynastic runs and what the 49ers did in the 90s and what the Patriots did in the 2000s and then in the back end of Brady's career in the 2010s. The Chiefs had an opportunity going into this year to be one of those teams, and they feel it getting away from them. And I think that has manifested itself in the outward frustration that we have seen from Kelsey. It's not entirely new from Kelsey. I just don't think we've seen it quite this much, quite this amplified to the point where Andy Reid has to pull him off the field for a play and get in his ear. We have certainly not seen it like this from Patrick Mahomes on the sideline before. And I think what we are seeing is a football team that for the last 5-6 seasons has been convinced every time they took the field, we're going to win. Down by 10, down by 14, down by 20, doesn't matter. We're going to win. We're going to find a way. We're more prepared. We're better coached. We got the best player on the field in Patrick Mahomes. We're going to win. They believe it, I think, with all of their heart, and it is why they have won championships in 2 scenarios where they had to rally back in the second half of Super Bowls to win.
Mm-hmm.
They had to rally back from one of the largest deficits ever overcome in the history of the playoffs against Houston in that run to the first title. That's a feeling of invincibility. That's like an aura about yourself that you have as a team where you feel like no matter what the scenario, what the situation, how tall the mountain is that you have to climb, you're going to do it. And I think that's gone. I think that's been punctured for this Chiefs team. I don't think they have that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think that frustration that you're seeing on the sideline is the understanding that, hey, if we don't get right now, if we aren't perfect, if we aren't unable to stay out of our own way, we aren't going to win these games. And they have lost that feeling, I think, of invincibility. And it is a hell of a hard thing to get back. We have talked in recent weeks about, you take for granted when a team like the Chiefs has done it, but you take for granted historically how hard it is to get back to the Super Bowl after you lose. We look at what's happening with the Eagles this year, where they were winning, but things didn't feel great. And now I know they won on Monday, but they had lost 3 before that.
Yep.
Things felt kind of iffy in that locker room. And even for teams that string championship seasons together, it happens to them too. The mid-2010 Seahawks, they lost it when they lost that Super Bowl. They blew that game to New England. They were a yard away from being back-to-back champions, and they blew it, and they never got that feeling back. For the Patriots, even the Patriots, the greatest winners in the NFL of this century, it is not a coincidence that their Super Bowl droughts were the longest after the ones that they lost. They lost that Super Bowl when they were 18-0 in 2007. It took them 7 more years to win another one after that. It was 10 full years or 9 full years, I should say, between titles, because they won in 2005 and then they didn't win again until 2014. So they can do all of the X's and O's things better. They could clean those things up. Like, theoretically, those things are still possible because these are professionals. These are talented professionals. They have had success as a group before. Even the people who are counting them out are not counting them out. Like, even I was watching, it's the Ringers football podcast with Sheil Kapadia and Ben Solak. And Sheil Kapadia in the podcast, they were saying, I'm done. I'm out on the Chiefs. They can't do it. They're not going to figure it out. They had 15 weeks to figure it out. They're not going to do it. And even he was couching his remarks in, now, I know I run the risk of sounding stupid here. Even the people that are counting the Chiefs out aren't really doing it. But the Chiefs just used to have that feeling of inevitability, and they don't anymore. And I think you probably feel that as a fan. And I think they start to feel that on the sideline too. And I don't know how you get that back. And that's the kind of thing that leads you down the road to what ultimately, if it does not end in at least an AFC championship game appearance, is going to feel like a wasted season.
I mean, remember back to some of the things that have been said or been uttered or muttered by Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid on the sideline. And I think you've got perfect evidence of that. He can't bleeping do it, or I can't bleeping trust him. But however you were reading the lips in those scenarios, talking about Kadarius Toney or whoever else, that tells you really all you need to know is that they don't feel like they can get it done with this group they have out there, because this is the group that they have out there. And again, that's why, and not that it, maybe this would have been like this anyway this year, but when the Chiefs didn't make a move at the deadline to add someone, to add a pass catcher, that made it very clear that they were content with this group, and the Chiefs also thought it was going to get better. The Chiefs have spent a lot of this season with, honestly, out of character optimism about the development potential for this team. And let's be frank, sometimes it just doesn't work. I mean, teams miss all the time. It's not quite baseball where the old saying goes, if you succeed 30% of the time, you're a Hall of Famer in baseball. The threshold's not quite that low percentage-wise in the NFL, but like a decent GM, and, relative to the big swings versus the small swings, if you get it right 50% of the time, do you think you're one of the better GMs in the NFL? Like, if you hit on 50% of your draft picks and about half of your free agent signings end up being good, half of them end up not helping you a whole lot, would that be like enough to get you at least a handful of years at the helm of a team?
It depends on how big your hits are and how big your misses are.
That's certainly true. But like Brett Veach hasn't hit on everything. Brett Veach's first draft was a disaster.
Yeah, it was not good.
Miserably bad. But since then, it's been quite good. Free agents they've brought in have been quite good. Extensions that the Chiefs have worked on have been quite good. Frankly, going into this year, the Chiefs were above expectation in terms of, I'll go cross-board here, give you a baseball example. We talked a lot this past year about batting average on balls in play, right? Nick Prado specifically, where he was hitting so preposterously high on batting average on balls in play. He was over 500 for weeks. And it was, guys, this is going to come down. And the regression is probably going to be rough, because that's not going to happen. It is unsustainable. Brett Veach and Andy Reid with the personnel probably hitting at an unsustainable level for the Chiefs over the last few years. Think of all the wins. Even when they got rid of Tyreek Hill, it worked out. They got rid of a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL, and they ended up getting better on offense last year. And they added all pro and Pro Bowl caliber players in his place. They just kept hitting and hitting and hitting. Sometimes you miss. For the Chiefs before this, the last big miss was the 2018 draft. I don't even say the offensive line in 2020, because they were so injured.
There was so many injuries. Yeah.
Eric Fisher got hurt. Other guys got hurt. You had to bring back Stefan Wisniewski, who used up all his juice for the 2019 Super Bowl run, I believe. So sometimes you just whiff. And this year is a Chiefs whiff, and it happens. They whiffed on the wide receiver room.
They thought that they could get that right with minimal resources, and they were wrong. They were wrong.
Yeah.
And you're seeing the results of that. And what it has created is it's a lack of trust. If you don't believe that your teammates are going to come through, if you don't trust your teammates to make the play, that lack of trust leads to that feeling of that lack of invincibility. Like one of our texters, we have a text from 785 that says it's sort of an it factor. KU basketball has always had it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That feeling at Allen Fieldhouse. It does not matter what the deficit is. It does not matter how much time is left. We're going to win, because that's what we do. We win here.
Yep.
And then they do way more often than not. Hilariously more often than not. Like, the numbers don't even feel real. But yeah, the Chiefs have had that too. And this year they don't. And I don't know how you get that back. I don't know how you restore that, because at the end of the day, a lot of the things are still true. They still do have Hall of Fame head coach. They still do have a quarterback who, look, I know this has been a down year. Officially, we can call it a down year for Patrick Mahomes by his standards. If they did a dispersal draft of the entire league tomorrow, Patrick Mahomes is going 1-1. And
correct.
Yeah, and whatever GM is making that pick is not thinking hard about it. Like, it's not a hard decision. He would be the number 1 overall pick in an NFL dispersal draft. He's still the best player in the league. So you still have some of those things that give you a chance, which is why I'm not ready to declare, I'm not going to shovel any dirt over a casket. No. I'm not ready to erect a gravestone yet, but it looks so grim because, what was it that Andy Reid said? When it's grim, go be the Grim Reaper.
Uh-huh.
This team doesn't have that in them. This team just doesn't feel like they have that in them.
No. Which is Kind of sad because that's been fun in December and January the last couple of years.
And this team is the opposite of fun to watch play football.
No.
Even when they win, they have not. How many Chiefs games this year have been fun? How many Chiefs games you go, man, that was a really fun game to watch?
The Bears game.
Yeah.
That's maybe it for the entire year. We have to get to a break. We'll hear from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes next hour. We'll hear from Tim Fitzgerald at the bottom of this hour. But first, our third semifinal and What Is Wrong With You for our Tournament of Failed Champions next on 580 Sports Talk. Two semifinals down, 2 to go. It's semifinal Wednesday for the 2023 What Is Wrong With You Tournament of Failed Champions on 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan. In our first semifinal of the day, the Wrong Man Waterboarding from October picked up a 1-vote win on the text line, barely edging out the Got Locked Up in the Lockup. And once you poop, the fun don't stop, the Pringles can pooper. In our semifinal last hour, it was the fake firefighter, one of the most side-splittingly funny stories we've had, coming away with a win over the oblivious boyfriend and my beloved, the human hamster wheel. This hour, we've got 3 more great ones, and we start with January through March. And our first story, it features what I am willing to call, and I'm going to put it up on YouTube right now, the funniest visual we have ever had for a What Is Wrong With You story. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the meat suitcase. And if you're watching on YouTube, our channel is called 580 Sports Talk. We recommend you go over, check it out. If you can't watch it right now, go back later, rewind to this segment so you can see a picture of the meat suitcase. And if you're on YouTube already, it's on the screen right now. We go to South Euclid, Ohio, where a Garfield Heights man was arrested last week after investigators say not last week, this is back in January, stole a shopping cart full of packaged meat to resell at restaurants. According to the South Euclid police, Walmart reported a shoplifter who pushed a shopping cart full of various packaged meat and a suitcase out of the store without paying. Investigators say the suspect then filled the suitcase with the stolen meat. Anything that couldn't fit in the suitcase was thrown in the dumpster. According to police, the man pushed the cart until its security feature locked its front wheel. Then he walked off with the meat-filled suitcase. He was stopped at a bus stop across from the Walmart. The 62-year-old suspect told officers that he sells stolen meat to restaurants at half price.
Hence the name, the Robin Hood of ribeye.
The man did not name those restaurants. This gentleman did have several other warrants out for his arrest, including 2 with the South Euclid Police Department. This arrest and booking was for theft. This was also the 70th time this guy had been arrested. He had more arrests than years on this earth.
Man, I don't know that we had more fun with a story when it was introduced than we did with this one, because the visual is just, it's a roller suitcase full of meat, beef livers, like 10-pound chubs of ground beef. You got a rack of ribs, got some steak.
Decent cuts too. That's well marbled up in the top half.
Yeah, it is. That is a good cut.
No, he just packed the whole thing. We got ground chuck in there. Is everything you could, I guess it's not ground, it's roast chuck. Everything he could find, he just jammed in the suitcase and said, all right, well, if I can't get the cart out, I guess I'll take my suitcase out.
Oh my goodness.
And this isn't just a little one. This ain't the one you can essentially carry through the airport. This is a full roller bag.
And he says he takes that sucker place to place and sells it to restaurants at below markup.
The Robin Hood of ribeye.
He's got his own business.
I love this story so much. I really, really do. It's one of my favorites we've ever had. And again, I truly believe the best visual we've ever had. What is wrong with you?
There were two stories this year that made me laugh until tears came from my eyes this year. One of them is in our final grouping in the 5 o'clock hour. The other was this one.
So funny. Our second semifinal from my neck of the woods, suburban Chicago. We've got the Chicken Wing Lady. Pretty simple name here.
Yeah, good old Vera Liddell, former director of food services at Harvey School District 152, who embezzled $1 million worth of stolen chicken wings. She was placing orders for the food items while there was a pandemic going on, and the school district was still offering meals for pickup during remote learning. And she placed hundreds of unauthorized orders for food items, including 11,000 cases of chicken wings. And these purchases were made separately from legitimate orders made by the school district, but Gordon Food Services believed all the purchases were authorized and billed the district for everything. And it took the district almost 2 years to realize, hey, it's January, the school year's only half over, and we're $300,000 over our food budget. What the hell's happening here? Closer review uncovered individual invoices signed by Liddell for what the story calls absurd quantities of chicken wings, which the school district doesn't even serve to students because they contain bones. Prosecutors said it wasn't clear what she did with the chicken wings. I bet she had some banging bears and bulls watch parties. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, no kidding. They're just having a blast. I had to go, hey, DeMar's back from injury. Come on over. We got wings. Dude, 11,000 cases of chicken wings.
I don't know how many wings are in a case. We can only guess, but that's a lot of chicken wings.
11,000.
It's making me hungry for chicken wings.
Just preposterous. And finally, another one that was incredibly funny. The not so clean getaway.
Amazingly, from the same location as the Robin Hood of ribeye, South Euclid, Ohio.
Yeah. What's going on in South Euclid, man?
It's the Florida of the Midwest, Ohio. We know this.
We know that.
Anyway, this guy tried to rob a Giant Eagle grocery store. He booked out of there with $500 in unpaid merchandise and got in a getaway car. But the problem was that the getaway car he got in was in the middle of a car wash line, and the car couldn't move. And that made it extremely easy for police to descend on both the robber and his getaway driver and arrest them both. They were stuck in the express. Like, I love this story so much. Like, does it have a visual as good as the meat suitcase? No, it does not. But I love this story. All right, got a plan. You're going to be my getaway driver. I'm going to go and do the deed. I'm going to walk out of here with a bunch of groceries. All you have to do is be somewhere where I can get in the car and we can leave. And the guy waiting for his friend to put $500 worth of groceries in his cart thinks, you know what? I got some time. I'm going to go get in line at the car wash. I'll let him know that's where I'll be. I'm sure it'll be fine. It says express. That means it will be fast.
Yeah, I'll get out of here nice and quickly.
I get stuck in line at the car wash.
Did they get it clean before they got arrested?
I don't know if they did. I don't believe so. I think they were stuck in line.
Didn't even get the payoff.
No,
terrible.
Didn't get the wax. Nothing.
All right, those are our three
I wonder if they
semifinalists.
even got the towel to wipe off your
Try it
dashboard.
off.
Yeah.
So those are our three semifinalists this hour: the Robin Hood of ribeye, the meat suitcase, the chicken wing lady, and the not so clean getaway.
I love the not so clean getaway. Like, I love this story. I wonder if the meat suitcase is too dependent on the visual. But as you said, it is an all-time great visual. It is one of the funnier visuals we've ever had access to.
He also has been arrested 70 times. And he was stealing meat. He was stealing from the rich to then sell at a discount to the also rich. He did not get all the way through the story of Robin Hood.
Do you think he was going to the chains, or do you think he was just going like the mom and pop, like Mexican and Chinese restaurants in town?
Dude showed up at Chili's, said, "Hey, I got a deal for you." Showed up at Texas Roadhouse. Oh, you guys, you got steaks, huh? Watch this.
You want your baby back, baby back, baby back? I got them. Below markup.
Man, like, chicken wing lady is ridiculous. The not so clean getaway is such a farce. This man stuffed meat in a suitcase and stole it from a Walmart.
And then told the police, yeah, this is something I do a lot.
This is my hustle. I gotta go with that, man. I have to.
70 arrests.
70!
We don't know how many of them were for the meat thing, but
more arrests than years spent alive.
Yeah.
That's
got to be it. Robin Hood or ribeye. Yeah, we got to move him on.
That is our winner today for semifinal 3 in What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. We've got one more semifinal next hour, but first, we've got Tim Fitzgerald. He joins us next on 580 Sports Talk. Welcome in our good friend Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com for this week's Wildcat Wrap-up. Fitz joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. You can find Fitz's work at GoPowerCat.com. You can find him on Twitter at Life of Fitz. And Fitz, a very merry belated Christmas to you and yours. How was your holiday?
It was good. We laid low at home, hung out with the dogs. It was wonderful.
Love to hear that. Well, I'm glad it was a good holiday. Now, we've got to ask first. We've got a lot of bowl game prep to get to, but I've got to ask, the Fitzcast returning for the Pop-Tarts Bowl. What are K-State fans going to be able to do with you guys at Go Power Cat to enjoy the game tomorrow?
Well, just come on over to our YouTube channel, Go Power Cat. We're going to start about 4:30. We're going to be there throughout the game. It's basically the group that does the pregame podcast. Myself, Brian Hanley, Ryan Wallace, Ryan Gilbert. And then we've got a guest lined up for every quarter of the game. And you know what? I love you guys. I'm going to give you the scoop who our first quarter guest is.
Oh,
Michael Bishop. He's going to be on the Fitzcast. And we're going to take a good look at Avery Johnson. The second quarter, we're going to have Nick Leckie come in. Third quarter, we're going to have Ryan Gilbert. I knew I'd do it. James Gilbert, former running back for Chris Kleiman's program. And then in the fourth quarter, this one was designed, whether K-State is winning or losing, this guest is going to be watching in a bar. So it could be the greatest you-know-what show on earth. Kelly in Vegas will be joining us in the fourth quarter. And there are no language filters available, so the children might want to be careful with what they listen to from Kelly. She's a bad influence.
that is going to be a blast. That is the Fitzcast, the whole Go PowerCat crew going to have full wall-to-wall coverage of the Pop-Tarts Bowl. And again, the Go PowerCat YouTube channel, go check it out. Go subscribe to both of us, 580 Sports Talk and Go PowerCat. You'll be ready for all the best coverage of the Pop-Tarts Bowl from the K-State angle coming up tomorrow. Fitz, your biggest storyline going into this matchup with NC State for K-State is what?
Well, you know what? It's easy. It's Avery Johnson. Everyone is fired up because of Avery. Can he, fulfill anywhere close, excuse me, to the expectations people have for him? I'm not sure. I have great confidence in this young man as a leader and a person, and but it's his first career start. This is a really good defense for NC State, a sound test. So, I mean, let's be honest here. If Avery Johnson doesn't play well, K-State's probably not going to win, but I expect him to, hold his own. I don't expect him to be overwhelmed by the moment at all.
When it comes to play calling, play design, all of that, obviously Colin Klein on his way out of town. He's headed to Texas A&M. He's already in College Station. Do you think things are going to look any different, though, when it comes to the play calling for Avery Johnson and for this offense overall? I know we saw a mostly limited package of plays for Avery over the course of the year when he got into games. How would you sort of expect the game planning to go for the offense, playing to his strengths and trying to get him as comfortable as possible?
Yeah, I imagine that first quarter, knowing Connor Riley is the line coach, he's going to try to settle everyone in. He might try to run the ball a little bit, try to keep Avery safe in how he throws the ball. But then again, maybe they'll come up and crowd the line of scrimmage and dare him to run, and he'll go over the top. I don't know. It's, offensive play calling is impossible to predict until you've seen someone do it for a while. I don't even think they probably know how they're going to, call the game once it gets in the process because there's so many variables involved. And I'm anxious to see his Connor Riley's tendencies as a play caller with a quarterback who is truly a dual threat and how that'll manifest itself. They're going to put a great deal of emphasis on the throwing game going forward, and they're looking for really good receivers out there. So I think this will be a nice little sampling of what they've got in store.
Tim Fitzgerald, GoPowerCat.com, joins us for the Wildcat Wrap-up here on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline every Wednesday at this time here on the program. Find him and his staff's outstanding work at GoPowerCat.com. Check out Fitz on Twitter at Life of Fitz. Fitz, last time we saw the K-State defense take the field, they didn't exactly cover themselves in glory, and they're going to be without some pieces that played a lot of snaps for them during the regular season, guys like Kobe Savage and Will Lee. What do you expect to see defensively from Kansas State in this game, and how important is a good performance for that group to maybe wash some of the taste from that Iowa State game out of the mouth going into next year?
Yeah, try to scrape the embarrassment off. I mean, it was embarrassing. And granted, there were so many external factors involved with the weather and everything else. And it turns out some distractions in the locker room with people talking about transferring. You've got to regroup after that. And I think they will. It's going to be probably some mistakes. We'll probably see that with some young guys getting to play. It looks like Jack Fabris is going to start at Kobe Savage's safety position. They made the decision to redshirt him and now the bowl games don't count towards any of that, so everyone's on board. You got Colby McAllister. You've got some young guys that are going to have a big impact on this defense, and I'd like to say that there won't be mistakes, but there will be. But then again, we saw some mistakes from the veteran guys too in the past. So hopefully they can get settled in before they pay too big a price with giving up some big plays. Because last thing you want to do is follow up that Iowa State game with another bad performance.
K-State was able to keep their recruiting class intact into National Signing Day last week. I know that was a concern in some circles, but they kept it together. They're still going to work in the transfer portal. How do they feel about the group of incoming players and maybe kind of settling some of the nerves given the numbers of players that did go into the portal that maybe there was some internal unrest in the locker room?
I don't think there was internal unrest at all. I think it you kind of have a division of how do I want to say this? Generations, maybe. You had the Will Howard, start of the pandemic, early guys, some of the hangovers from Bill Snyder. They were all really well bonded, and as Will moved on, we saw Phillip Brooks move on, Ben Sinnott declare for the draft. But other guys from that generation, like Hayden Gillum and Cooper Beebe, stayed the course and continued to play. So I just think there's a changing of the leadership of this team. There's some of the veteran guys still around, but it's the first game in which the young guys are being asked to lead and shine, and they're the future of the program. Everyone kind of knows that. Hell, the starting quarterback at Kansas State knew that Avery Johnson was going to be the guy next year, and he hit the portal. So there's just a lot of optimism, even from those older guys, about how good this group is.
They wanted to bring a quarterback in this class. Blake Barnett's the kid out of Erie, Colorado, set some state records out there in for our neighbors to the west. There was some concern that maybe his commitment wasn't so solid because Colin Klein was so instrumental in recruiting him. But in the end, Blake Barnett signed with Kansas State. Obviously, K-State's got to rebuild the quarterback room a little bit. What are the expectations for Barnett? Do they see a future starter there?
Yeah, they do. They really like him. He's a warrior. He helped him win the state championship, the first one, I think, at his school, Erie, since 1997. And he was kind of a one-man wrecking crew. He played both sides of the ball. He's a violent hitter as a safety, and he's a run-pass threat as a quarterback. He can really run the ball. They're kind of getting back to their roots of a true dual threat quarterback. Will could run the ball. There's no doubt about it, but there's no doubt he was also a pocket passer that preferred to stay back there. And, they used him pretty wisely in the run game, usually typically down around the goal line or in a short yardage situation when they convert something. Guys like Avery and Blake represent the ability to just weave in the quarterback run game during the game and with a high level of threat. Particularly with Avery's speed. If you don't account for him, if he finds a seam, he might be gone. So I like what they're doing with the quarterback room. I'm a true believer in the dual threat quarterback. I think in the college game, the way it operates, you've got to be able to equalize the numbers, but with the quarterback run game in some situations. And I'm glad K-State's going to kind of get back to that.
Want to pivot real quick here, Fitz, to basketball. I was at the Wildcat Classic on Thursday night, last Thursday. K-State beat Wichita State. Not going to be an ESPN Classic or anything like that, but a game that K-State certainly controlled the bulk of the second half and kept Wichita State at arm's length. Not their best effort, but still an effort good enough to win a basketball game. But David Gasson was kind of the story coming out of that one. How important was that performance for him? And is that a performance that K-State can get from him? Can they get a double-double threat from David Gasson every night?
Yeah. He's one of those guys that kind of quietly goes about his business. He's a pretty good defender. Got some great length. His problem was he's been missing free throws like crazy. And he was 3 of 5 in Kansas City, which was a positive sign. He finishes at the rim really well. He's really good at making himself available to penetrating guards. And if they can get him kind of back on track to where he was last year, and let's be honest, his ability to get open in the low post was the perfect pairing for Marquise Noel, who was always looking for an available guy at the rim. And they just haven't had that type of guy yet that hasn't fully developed. I've seen some interior passing begin to develop, and I'm really encouraged that David had a good game after struggling so much. But I think this team, Quez Glover is expected to come back for the Chicago State game, and man, I tell you what, if he can bring any kind of like positive vibe to this team and maybe a little bit more ball handling, it'd be really good, because I think they're struggling right now, kind of taking care of the ball and running the offense through the guard position.
We're chatting with Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. He joins us for the Wildcat Wrap-up every Wednesday at this time on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Head over to GoPowerCat.com for all Fitz's work, and you can follow him on Twitter, and should follow him on Twitter. At Life of Fitz is his handle there. When it comes to Quez Glover, Fitz, to build on that, I know we've talked about him before and what it'll mean when he returns. I sort of feel watching this team like things are all a little bit out of sync, because it sort of feels like guys are a little bit out of position without that true number one point guard out there. So to me, I've been saying for a little while, I think once he gets back, maybe it takes a week or two so he can get fully in the swing of things. But I've been feeling like the offense is going to finally click once he gets out there. Do you feel like it's the same way, or do you have to see it to believe it a little bit with Glover?
Exactly. I got to see it. And I know they're really excited about him. I think he was a better player than they expected when he got here. They knew he was pretty good, but I think they were kind of blown away by how good he was in the preseason, before that exhibition game in which he got injured. So that set him back. Everything going on with Naquan Tomlin set him back. And they've just had these lingering, when we get this guy back. And it's going to be good to see them at full strength for, what's available. And we'll see if that makes a difference. This last game on maybe it's the January 2nd. It's the last game before Big 12 play. It's time to click and start to find yourselves, or you're going to get embarrassed. You're going to get beaten on a lot of nights in the Big 12 with this conference being so competitive.
One final thing from the football side, Fitz, involving a now former Kansas State Wildcat. What do you know about the latest on Will Howard's decision? We had heard, or at least I had read a week or two ago now, that it was almost a done deal that he was going to end up at USC. It's gone kind of quiet for a little bit, and now there were rumors from another website today, maybe some other programs, maybe the NFL is looking Will Howard's way. Have you heard anything about where Will's plans might be pointing right now?
Yeah, the latest I've got on that is Will's still pondering the NFL. He's kind of waiting on the Senior Bowl to, make sure their quarterbacks are all set. I think he feels like if the Senior Bowl comes back at the last second and says, hey, we got a spot for you, he might go. He's going to go. So I know USC is really interested. Ohio State's now popped up. There's NILs involved. He's just not in a rush right now. He's trying to figure out if he wants to go to the league. Guys, I think he needs another year of college football. I think this could, passing up playing for Lincoln Riley, who's a kind of a quarterback guru, is interesting if he does that. But of course, Ohio State is really close to home, being from Pennsylvania. So we'll see how it pans out. But he's not in a hurry. And also, we saw what happened at SC when it just leaked out that he might be committing there. Their young quarterback hit the portal. So there's also a level of strategy here from coaches. And K-State's doing it too. You won't see them make big portal announcements about players coming in until after the portal closes. That new guys can't jump in. Coming up in early January. And I expect once the portal closes and guys can't get into the portal, say, hey, they just signed this guy, I got to get out of here. We're going to see a bunch of signings or a bunch of commitments out of the portal. And that might be why Daniel Green hasn't announced his future. We all assume he's leaving, but he's got a 7th-year medical hardship available, but nothing's been announced. My guess is if he's going to come back, that won't be announced until the portal's closed.
Tim Fitzgerald covers the Kansas State Wildcats for GoPowerCat.com and 24/7 Sports. Go check out all of his and his group's content over at GoPowerCat. Check out the GoPowerCat YouTube as well. Follow Fitz on Twitter at Life of Fitz. He joins us every week at this time for the Wildcat Wrap-up. Fitz, we appreciate the time, and we'll see you tomorrow night during the Fitzcast.
Yes, I'll be there. Look, I've got two guys down there. Cole Carmody did his video today from like poolside. He's not working for me anymore. When he gets back, I'm going to fire him. What show me up like that?
Well,
Jerk.
Fitz, enjoy firing Cole, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, boys, good to talk to you.
That's Tim Fitzgerald, the absolute best of the best when it comes to the Kansas State Wildcats here on 580 Sports Talk. We have to get to a break. We've got 1 hour left of 580 Sports Talk. That's coming up after the national news. Hey now, start of the 5 o'clock hour on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you today. Thanks for hanging out with us. Busy 5 o'clock hour coming up. We'll get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We have our last What is Wrong with You? Yearly semifinal coming up at the second segment of this hour. Not quite the bottom of this hour. Depends on how long our headlines go. It will be our group of winners from April through June. Another really strong quarter of the year, including a couple really funny stories. And also one that I'm not going to give it away. I think we might have our first true runaway winner for a semifinal. I'm going to go as far as to say that. The worst harassment complaint of all time.
Yeah.
That's coming up. Those of you who listen to the show every day, you know exactly the one we're talking about.
Remember I said there were two stories that made me laugh to the point of crying this year? One of them has already moved on to the Fail 4, and the other one is in this next group.
We will get to that coming up here in 20 minutes or so. We'll also hear from both Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and what they had to say earlier on today. We'll get to your texts, 785-272-9429, and we'll get to your comments on our YouTube stream. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. Up over 400 subscribers as we go into the new year. Would love to see how high we can get. We're at 407, so if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube already, go and do so. Check us out. Again, 580 Sports Talk is the name of our channel on YouTube. Let's get to the headlines. Today's 580 Sports Talk headlines will start with a busy day around the NFL. Some news and notes. Let's start with the biggest one from the AFC West. Russell Wilson is being benched for the final two games of the regular season by the Denver Broncos. They are doing this in an effort to save a little money against the salary cap next year, assuming they're going to end up cutting Russell Wilson. This is a big, fat mess. So this is, let's see, where is the source we want to use for all of this? So Ian Rappaport brought this to our attention first earlier today and said the Broncos are, in fact, benching Russell Wilson for the final two games of the season, preserving their financial flexibility for the offseason. Jarrett Stidham is going to start for the Broncos instead. First and less importantly, what a great gig for Jarrett Stidham. Being just barely good enough to be the go-to guy for, we're going to bench our overpaid starter and start you for two games at the end of the year. It happened last year with the Raiders, now this year with the Broncos.
Yeah, and he threw for a bunch of yards against 49ers in one of those starts, and that got him $10 million over 2 years from the Broncos to be the Grim Reaper for Russell Wilson, just like he was the Grim Reaper for Derek Carr last year.
Heck of a gig. Heck of a gig.
Yeah, not bad if you can get it.
So here is what this means by flexibility. And Jordan Schultz of Bleacher Report added, this has nothing to do with play. This is entirely about finances.
Interesting, because Ian Rappaport, after carefully laying out the financial details, was careful to later tweet, this was entirely a football decision.
Interesting.
Yeah, wonder who his source was on that.
Yeah, wonder which whose sources are whose from all of these respective places. So this is going to end up potentially saving $37 million against the cap for the Broncos. Russell Wilson has a $37 million guarantee for injury going into next league year. However, there is also a drop-dead date on that guarantee that will fully guarantee it, I believe, shortly after the new league year begins.
Yeah, I think it's 5 days after the new league year. By the way, that's all part of the contract extension that hasn't started yet, that the Broncos signed Wilson to when they acquired him in trade from Seattle 2 years ago. So the last 2 years of Russell Wilson, that's the end of his Seattle contract. The 5-year, $242.6 million extension that the Broncos and Wilson agreed to, that hasn't started yet.
So here is Jeff Legwold, who's covered the Broncos for a long time. Here is what he says about this, and his writing better than I could come up with off the top of my head. Wilson is guaranteed $39 million next season, whether he's on the team or not. That's locked in. However, he also has an additional $37 million that would become guaranteed if he can't pass a physical in early March. An injury in the last two 2 games of the season could trigger that guarantee. The Broncos are making it clear they do not want to have to pay it. The Broncos would be on the hook for over, I believe it is $80 million in dead money if they cut him.
It is $85 million in dead money. They could spread it out over 2024 and 2025 if he is cut with a post-June 1 designation. $85 million is, in case you weren't sure, a lot of money. And it's a lot of money to be sitting on your salary cap going to nothing, particularly if you don't have a lot of young, cheaply priced talent. Friend, do the Broncos have a lot of young, cheaply priced talent?
They do not.
How many draft picks do they have in this next draft?
Is it 6?
It is a grand total of 6. They do have their first round pick. Good for them, but they traded their second round pick, to get Sean Payton.
Here to really put it in the football context is how devastating this is. Let's say it's $85 million dead next year. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The cap is going to go up. It'll probably be around 234 next year, 234 million or so. This year's salary cap for the NFL, $224.8 million per team. That dead money against this salary cap, 37.8%. That would be more than a third of the salary cap eaten up by a player you could not wait to get rid of. That's devastating, man. That's not a playoff team. No matter what they do, they should be they should have one of the lowest odds at FanDuel, DraftKings, whatever. One of the teams with the lowest odds to make the playoffs next year, because it's just hard to build a roster with that little talent, with that little space to add players.
But at least they'll be able to go get one of the elite quarterbacks in the upcoming draft with a top 5. No, sorry, they picked 13th probably. That's where they're projected to pick in the upcoming draft. Say goodbye to Caleb Williams. Say goodbye to Drake May. Say goodbye to Jaden Daniels. Hey, JJ McCarthy, get ready to learn River North, buddy.
I was going to say, does Sean Payton have any sort of connection to the University of Washington? Because they have a more than lightly used left-handed quarterback that will be available this year in Michael Penix. I get it in the sense that this is clearly not working the way they had hoped, but Wilson's also been playing better as of late. But I think you can also, at the same time, make the argument better is still not good enough for the Broncos to be a serious playoff contender.
So I don't know if you watched any of the Christmas Eve night game, Broncos-Patriots.
Minimal.
Patriots won that game, all but ending the Broncos' playoff hopes. The worst kicker in the NFL nailed a 56-yard field goal at the very end of the game. It was all very funny. If you're going to blame anybody for that loss, it should probably be Sean Payton because he mismanaged the game. And also a cornerback, we just can't bear to trade. We can't trade Patrick Surtain. We can't. He's irreplaceable. He's untouchable. He got cooked on the reception on third down that led to the Patriots ultimately putting together a game-winning drive. Anyhow, the Broncos were down 23-7 in that game, and Wilson was, and I didn't watch any of the first half, but Wilson was, by all accounts, terrible in the first half of that game.
Yeah.
Absolutely awful. And then when they went up-tempo, empty backfield, down by 16 points, Russell Wilson made it happen. Russell Wilson, without his number 1 receiver, Cortland Sutton, drove the Broncos down the field for touchdown drives and converted on the 2-point plays to tie the game at 23. From absolutely nothing, the Broncos had a chance to win that game at the end. If that sounds familiar, that's because that was a lot of Russell Wilson games in Seattle where the play standard was really bad. And then in the fourth quarter, it would be really good, because this is the thing about having Russell Wilson as your quarterback. And this has always been true. This was true in the best of years in Seattle. This was true toward the end of his career in Seattle. This has been true no matter who his offensive coordinator has been, whether it's been Joe Lombardi / Sean Payton this year, Nathaniel Hackett last year, Brian Schottenheimer, spacing on the guy's name that's currently in Seattle, Shane Waldron, Darrell Bevel. It hasn't mattered. If you have Russell Wilson as your quarterback, you're running Russell Wilson's offense. You have to do the things that Russell Wilson does well and limit the things that Russell Wilson has never done particularly well. Sean Payton hasn't had much interest in running the Russell Wilson offense. Sean Payton has a Super Bowl ring. He will be more than happy to remind you that he won with Drew Brees running Sean Payton's offense. It wasn't Drew Brees' offense. It was Sean Payton's offense. And if this is a power struggle, this is how Sean Payton wins power struggle. with Russell Wilson. He gets him out of town so that Sean Payton can run Sean Payton's offense because he don't want to run Russell Wilson's offense. Even though there was a stretch of play this year, a 5-game winning streak for the Broncos where Wilson did what you'd like him to do. Take care of the ball and hit on some deep shots. The thing he was always good at. The thing you could always count on him to be. Is he as athletic as he used to be? Have the years robbed him of some of the speed that he used to have in the pocket? Yeah, of course. He's in his mid-30s. That father time is undefeated. But his strengths and weaknesses are pretty much the same they have always been. It didn't go right in Denver, not because Russell Wilson suddenly forgot how to play quarterback. It went wrong for Russell Wilson in Denver because they stuck him with Nathaniel Hackett for a year, and then they got him a head coach who took one look at him and said, nah, man, I can't do it with this guy. I can't.
See, but by the same token, like Russell Wilson publicly said, I want to play for Sean Payton.
Yes, because he has always thought he was Drew Brees. And I thought, kind of in my head, that Sean Payton would be the coach to finally say, look, dude, I know Drew Brees. Drew Brees is a friend of mine. You, sir, are no Drew Brees. But
for good and for bad.
Yes. But hey, we can make this thing shake. You're good at certain things. You've won Pro Bowl. You've been to Pro Bowls. You've won Super Bowls. You've been an elite quarterback in this league doing these things. Let's keep doing these things. Let's accentuate your positives and get the best out of you. And I don't think Sean Payton had any real desire to ever do that. I don't think Russell Wilson thinks that Sean Payton had any desire to ever do that. If his Twitter likes are any indication, because he has been liking stories and reports that suggest that the Broncos went to Wilson after they beat the Chiefs and said, take the injury guarantees out of your contract or we're going to make you inactive for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and you should never do that. No, piss off. You didn't have to sign this contract. It's like if I'm Russell Wilson, I tell him,
yes.
you know what up a rope if I'm told that. So I don't blame Russell Wilson for that at all.
Russell Wilson would have a friendlier way of saying it, of course. He also liked a tweet that compared his stats to Patrick Mahomes' stats this year. The two, by the way, have the same number of passing touchdowns, the same number of yards per attempt. Wilson has thrown 6 fewer interceptions. Obviously, there's a lot more context needed there.
A little bit.
But no, Russell Wilson liked a tweet that pointed that out. So maybe he's being a little petty. Maybe Mr. Unlimited is being Mr. Petty in his Twitter likes right now. But I do know this, too. If you're going to say it's a football reason, it's not. It's absolutely not. Vegas will tell you the same. The Broncos were a 5.5-point favorite going into this week against the Chargers. When news broke that Wilson was benched for Jarrett Stidham, that line dropped 1.5 points.
Yeah.
2.5 points. I'm sorry. Went down to Broncos -3. So this is not a football decision. This is Sean Payton wins the power struggle and would rather eat trash for the next 2 years. Because if you've got a guy not playing for you, eating up nearly 40% of your cap, you're going to eat some trash. And again, that's the PG way to say what Sean Payton and the Broncos are going to eat the next 2 years with that hold on their salary cap.
Yeah.
You'd rather eat the trash than spend one more minute trying to make it work with Russell Wilson.
It is very funny, though, that after a full offseason and regular season of signing as many former Saints as possible, Sean Payton is also just doing what the Saints have done with their salary cap year after year and just like wasted it completely, which is very funny. By the way, I would like to point as a final thought on Russell Wilson, I want to take you back to Tuesday, March 8th of 2022. And I'm going to take you to the website Reddit. You a big Reddit user?
Sometimes, here and there.
It's a dark and stormy place, often filled with bad stuff, but it does also bring us the occasional gem, like this from user @maybe_second_best_man, who said this about Russell Wilson. Again, this was in 2022, the day of the trade to the Broncos. Russell Wilson seems like the kind of guy who would borrow your wheelbarrow and then return it with a fresh coat of paint and a plate of his wife's brownies, which is nice, but then he sort of passive-aggressively chides you for letting it rust to begin with. And you're like, it's my wheelbarrow, man. And he's like, that's fine, brother. Be blessed and go with God. Yeah, no, I would agree with that 100%. That sounds exactly like him. I love Nate Tice, who writes for Yahoo and does podcasts for The Athletic. Mm-hmm. Mike Tice's son played college ball at Wisconsin. He was a backup and
quarterback
and friend of Russell Wilson.
Roommate.
Yeah.
Lived with Russell Wilson.
And he's told stories before about how he essentially, part of his job as backup quarterback for Russell was also being like his on-the-street PR man, because Russell Wilson would be himself. And Nate Tice would then have to like make him more relatable on the fly to normal people, which is very funny.
Look, Russell Wilson is still my favorite quarterback of all time, even if he spent the last 2 seasons playing for a team I pretty openly don't like. I think he got a raw deal here. I really do. I think he's getting a raw deal. I think Sean Payton decided right away he didn't really want to make it work with Russell Wilson. And so this is what it is. And I don't know, feel a little bit bad for Russell Wilson. As bad as you can feel for somebody who's basically a football playing robot.
And here's the thing, too. It's done by Denver. More than anything, why would you pay that much money for a guy, that much draft capital for a guy, and then not use him to the best of his abilities? Teams do this all the time, and it's outrageously stupid.
Yeah.
So stupid.
No, Russell Wilson, like I said, I think he's the same player. He's always been maybe a little less mobile in the pocket, maybe fewer of those moments of magic where he spins around and keeps the play alive for 13 seconds. And, oh, my gosh, somebody's wide open for 25 yards. But, like, that's still there. If you watched any of him this year, like, he can still do that. You give him a wide receiver playing at a high level like Cortland Sutton finally did. You give him a running game that's functional, an offensive line that plays well. He can still do that stuff for you. He's still going to do the annoying stuff too. He's still going to take some sacks, way more sacks than you'd like. There are going to be a lot more 3 and outs than you'd like. There are going to be some frustrating games, some frustrating drives, because sometimes there's plays that Russell Wilson can't make. But the ones that he does, historically, have outweighed the ones that he doesn't. And for the last 2 years, that hasn't been the case in Denver. And I don't know, maybe that's not all his fault, is all I'm saying.
The 3 biggest headlines from the NFL today all involve players who are not going to play this week. One getting benched, one getting suspended, one getting injured. Russell Wilson's getting benched. Let's get to a player who's being suspended. Jaire Alexander of the Green Bay Packers had not played for 6 straight weeks, played against Carolina, and was goofing off big time. He was not listed as a captain by the Packers because the Packers do a different captain every game. They actually didn't even name captains at all this year. So they have a different group every game. Jaire Alexander was not one of them, but he's from Charlotte, where the Packers played on Sunday. So he himself walked out for the coin toss, and he called it right, but then screwed up what they were trying to do when they won the coin toss. The officials had to correct him.
Right. So what Jaire Alexander said was, we want to play defense, which is essentially you're using your choice to kick the ball off, which then the other team gets their choice. And obviously they're not going to choose to kick the ball off to start the second half. So if you choose to kick, that means the other team is going to receive the opening kickoff in both halves. That's stupid. So nobody does that, right? Nobody says we'll kick. Like we'll put our defense on the field. That's not a thing that happens. You defer your choice so that you can choose in the second half whether or not you want the ball. But Jaire Alexander said, I want to put the defense out there. And the official said, you mean you want to defer? And everyone was laughing at him. And Jaire Alexander's like, yeah, man, that's what I meant. And then was really, really goofy about it after the game as well.
Which is I think most people know that about him, because he's been a pretty prominent NFL player for quite a while now. I think most people know he's a different kind of dude. So being weird is really up his alley. That in and of itself, not really a shock. But the Packers are kind of sick of the year that Jaire Alexander has been having. He's been injured. It's kind of a weird situation, goofing around here. Matt LaFleur said today in his press conference after it was announced he's going to be benched for this coming game for a suspension against the Minnesota Vikings. Matt LaFleur said, it's never just one thing.
No.
Which is really all you need to know.
And it would have to be more than just one thing to take a former All-Pro out of a must-win game where he might have to cover the best receiver in the NFL. It would have to be more than just one thing.
Yeah.
It would have to be a pattern of behavior.
Hey, I'll tell you this, though. Watch Predictabot great Corey Ballantyne's going to have a lot of playing time this weekend.
Yeah, a lot of camera time.
Yeah, no kidding about that. So that's the suspension news. A couple weeks ago, I said I was opting out of Jaire Alexander discourse. I couldn't take it anymore. So I had to opt out. And then the player who is injured and going to miss this week and the rest of the season, also from that Packers versus Viking games, tight end TJ Hawkinson, who's had a really good year in his first full year with the Vikings, torn ACL and MCL this past weekend against the Lions. He is done for the season and very possibly into the start of next year. That's tough. He's a good player, man. He's having a really good year. He fits really well in that Kevin O'Connell offense.
Yeah, that is certainly a big blow to the Vikings' chances of remaining alive and capturing a playoff spot in the NFC. I've got just one more headline to get to today. Back on October 28th of this year, In Detroit, the Detroit Pistons defeated the Chicago Bulls 118-102. That was the second straight win for the Pistons on the young season. They improved to 2-1 on the year behind 25 points from Cade Cunningham. They have won since. And last night, in a 118-112 home loss to the Brooklyn Nets, set a new NBA record for futility, 27 consecutive defeats. They are now 2-28. This despite a 36-point second half from Cunningham, who had 41 on the night. It was not enough as the Pistons set an NBA record. Now, you may be familiar, if you follow the NBA in any way, or even like kind of aware of sports, you understand the concept of tanking, right? The idea that we're going to be bad on purpose. We're not going to invest anything in this roster. We've got a bunch of draft picks next year. We want the highest draft picks we can get. We're going to tank. It's a process. The Sixers pulled this off to an extent about a decade ago. They ended up with Joel Embiid. That worked out pretty well for them in the long run. The Detroit Pistons did not come into this season intending to tank in any way, shape, or form. In fact, they paid Monty Williams, who just 3 seasons ago guided the Phoenix Suns to the NBA Finals, a lot of money to be their new head coach.
Yep.
And they just have a roster that is doo-doo garbage. They just have a roster that was intended to be good, but it turns out in practice, it stinks. It's not as though there's an injury apocalypse happening, like all their guys are playing, although I guess they missed Monty Morris at point guard probably. But they're just wretched. They're wretched, but they're just rancid. 27 consecutive losses. Oh, by the way, their next game at Boston.
Not great. They haven't beaten Boston in the last couple of years.
And
Cade Cunningham is a good NBA player.
Yeah, he is.
He had, I think it was 40 last night in the loss. How do you not give him the ball for the most important shot of the game? Why is Alec Burks taking shots at the end of a game?
Do you know who has a win more recently than the Detroit Pistons?
The Arizona Diamondbacks.
The Arizona Diamondbacks.
I
who
saw
are
that.
a baseball team and whose season ended much earlier than the Pistons did. Again, they go to Boston tomorrow night. They're at home against Toronto on Saturday, so they could finish the year winless, even though Toronto's not very good. Then they got a 4-game road trip to the West Coast: Houston, Utah, Golden State, and Denver. And it is at the point now where, you know, like if you're playing a bad team, you look on the schedule and say, you know, sometimes you overlook a bad team and you don't bring your A game and you get sniped. You don't want to be the team that the team with the longest losing streak in NBA history snaps their streak against. They're going to be playing against teams who are dialed to play them every single night until the streak is over. Not great.
No, they're selling out arenas, though, man. Everyone wants to come see the Pistons lose. Genius marketing.
Maybe I'll fly back to Denver to see them play the Nuggets on January 7th if the streak is still alive. It's a Saturday night.
Quintuple double for Jokic in that game. That'll do it for today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. Coming up next, our final semifinal for this year's What Is Wrong With You Tournament of Failed Champions. 3 more stories. We'll get to those coming up right after this on 580 Sports Talk. have one more trio of semifinalists to get through today. It is our semifinal Wednesday for the 2023 What Is Wrong With You Tournament of Failed Champions. So far today, we have determined that advancing on to the Fail 4 of Friday, the Wrong Man waterboarding in our first semifinal, the winner from October. The July winner, the fake firefighter, that advances on from semifinal number 2. In our third semifinal last hour, the Robin Hood of ribeye, a.k.a. the meat suitcase. And now we've got 3 more stories from April, May, and June trying to determine who will be our finalist for the Fail 4 in What Is Wrong With You. First, from April, we go down to the state of Florida, and we've got the Toll Dodger.
This dude made a severe miscalculation. Gentleman whose last name is Price. We don't have his full name here. But he took the license plate off his motorcycle because he didn't want to get captured by the camera toll. He didn't want to pay a toll. And as he was being pulled over, police vehicle was trying to cut him off. And as the deputy got out of his car to approach Price on his motorcycle, Price hit him with his motorcycle.
Yep.
Later told him after he was apprehended and arrested, sorry about that, man. I didn't have my plate on and I freaked out. So he went from, if he had been stopped for not having his license plate, if he just left well enough alone, he'd have been cited with a non-moving violation and a $116 fine. However, he chose option B, which is a third-degree felony charge, which could land him up to 5 years in prison, a $5,000 fine, a mandatory driver's license suspended, and a mandatory adjudication of guilt if he is convicted.
$116 turned into maybe 5 years in prison and $5,000 of fines. And just pay the toll, man. They're not that expensive. They're really not. No one likes paying tolls, but it's better than going to prison.
Yeah, that's the calculation you have to make. I could pay this toll, well, not more than $2 probably. $2-3, the most you've ever seen on a toll. Like $2.75.
Hey, it's not much.
Like one stop. I don't know how they do it in Florida. Obviously, they do it differently in Kansas. They do it differently in Colorado. They do it differently everywhere they got tolls. But like $3 maybe for one toll stop. Or if you're riding the tollway the whole way, like let's say you're going from like you're riding the whole Kansas Turnpike. That's what, $20?
Something like that. Yeah.
Or option B, just take your license plate off. You'll get fined and have to pay more. Or option C, attack the deputy with your bike.
And again, go to prison for a half a decade. I'm never going to jail. Never pick that option. You do not want to go.
Just don't unnecessary criming. Can't.
Yeah. To say the least with this idiot.
Unnecessary criming.
Our May champion, AJG. If you are a regular listener of 580 Sports Talk, you have heard of AJG, and you may remember a woman who believed that was short, not for Alexander J. Goulandris, but for instead a jumbo genital.
This woman believed that Goulandris, her boss, was coming on to her in a work email, believed that abbreviations and characters were in fact sexual in nature, thought that an XX was not representing a blank or a variable, but rather referred to kisses, and that a YY was also not a variable, but in fact a reference to sexual contact. And question marks did not indicate, question marks, but indicated a desire to wonder when she would be ready to have sex with him.
The email that she is upset about is so... Like, what sort of brain disease do you have to read into this more than it is? The solution, I think this is the typo, is currently used by XX Agris companies and YY barge lines in corn cargoes in the south-north flows in the, waterways.
What, that doesn't get your engine revved? You don't read that and immediately want to go to the bedroom?
Also, can you remind me of what the balance of the rollout will be and the approximate timing? Thanks, AJG. That made this woman, Miss Katrina Or is it Karina? Yes,
Karina.
Karina Gasparova, believe my boss is coming on to me. He's not worried about the corn cargo north-south flows. He's worried about having sex with me.
She told the tribunal that Mr. Galandris was rich and powerful and that a man in his position would be too clever to make any advances obvious. The claims from Miss Gasparova were called a skewed perception of everyday events by the tribunal panel, which said she demonstrated a tendency to make extraordinary allegations without evidence. And then she had to pay her former employer £5,000.
That is the ultimate FAFO moment in this year's What Is Wrong With You. You thought you had something going here with the jumbo genital claims, and it ended up costing you £5,000 and your job. She got fired.
Just this woman cooking this up, just looking at AJG for the longest time. How can I make this seem sexual? What fits?
So fun. A jumbo. No one speaks like that. No one anywhere ever.
No. We, again, typically refer to genitals in the plural.
Yes. Not a single one.
Not in
Which
singular.
one are you talking about? Oh my God, that was funny. That was another one that I just could not stop laughing.
Yeah, this
was
was the other one that made me laugh so hard that I cried. And I know that I was not alone. The text thread response to this story when we told it live was probably the most we got of a live telling of a story all year long. We had one listener tell us they had to pull over.
Our final story, our final semifinalist from June, another Kyle Manthey story.
Yeah.
Shout out to Kyle.
Both of us had one win while we were on vacation.
Yeah.
So this was when I was gone. This is the Petty Pennies, a gentleman owner of
this dude sucks.
Yeah.
I hate this guy.
Yeah, I hate Miles Walker of AOK Walker Auto Works in Georgia. He owed somebody $918. And this gentleman called the U.S. Department of Labor and complained about not receiving his paycheck, as anyone would. But Walker decided he would pay him back in 91,000 pennies covered in oil with a note on top that read, "Bleep you."
That were then dumped on his driveway.
Yes. Drove him to this guy's house, dumped him on the driveway.
It just so here is the official okay, so he also explained that there were more than 91,000 pennies and a few other coins among the bunch, so the former employee would get, quote, every penny he requested. In total, 100,003 pennies, 750 dimes, 2 quarters, a nickel, and his pay stub. Other employees of this same store, by the way, if I recall the original story correctly, also said, yeah, we're also owed back pay and overtime pay.
Yes. Mr. Walker put a lengthy screed on his website defending himself and included sentences like, the female that accused me of pulling down her pants in the lobby in front of others did not happen. And also, sure, I have disgruntled employees. What employer doesn't?
Well, yeah, I mean, this looks like a terrorist manifesto, his letter on his website about this.
Yes.
It's an all-black website with size 11 font in white with a red headline that says pennies. No, that comment about the female employee is so out of line. It's ridiculous.
Here's another sentence, and I'm sure you're shocked to hear this is part of this dude's get down. If the cancel culture focused their energy on something intelligent and worthwhile, they may be able to accomplish something great, like stopping needless murders in Chicago, Detroit, Baltimore, and D.C. every week. Yep, this guy was a jerk and flipped it into, well, what about black on black crime?
I just hate him.
Yeah, he sucks.
We don't often get the truly miserable, terrible people stories all the way to the tournament. This guy deserved it, though.
Yeah, he absolutely is trash. And I hope all the bad things in life happen to him and nobody else but him.
All right.
But he doesn't win.
No.
Let's be completely honest about this.
This woman thought her boss's initials in his email signature was short for the phrase a jumbo genital, as opposed to just Alexander J. Gulandris. She is out of her mind. Just completely out of her gourd.
There are some initials or abbreviations that, oh, yeah, I can see where maybe there's a misunderstanding there.
What does that letter F mean? Yeah, like, okay,
Yeah.
I get that.
BD what now? But no, AJG, you had to reverse engineer something to make it sound like your boss was sexually harassing you.
Question marks. They probably just mean questions, if we're being honest.
I said it then, I'll say it now. Don't flatter yourself, lady.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Yeah, that's an easy one. Our first true runaway in our semifinals. AJG, she is our winner for our final semifinal. So we have a short show tomorrow. We're only on from 2 to 2:30 due to the Pop-Tarts Bowl and pregame coverage for K-State. So on Friday, our 4 finalists, we will pick from this group our champion for What Is Wrong With You this year. Let's go in chronological order here. From January, the Robin Hood of Ribeye. From the month of May, AJG, a jumbo genital. From July, the fake firefighter. And from October, the wrong man waterboarding. That is our group for the What Is Wrong With You finals.
If you don't follow us on Twitter at 580 Sports Talk, follow us. We'll put a poll up and we'll get some listener engagement on that tomorrow when we would otherwise have a show. So, and also remember, you can check out the year and What Is Wrong With You 2023 on our podcast page.
We're trying to get the audio from that up on the YouTube. We don't have video for that. We're trying to get the podcast up on YouTube, more places to watch it.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll get those kinks worked out while we have a break. We're taking a break right now. We'll come back. We'll hear a little bit from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. That's next on 580 Sports Talk. Let's hear from some of the main characters for the Kansas City Chiefs, shall we? Both Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes spoke a little bit earlier today at One Arrowhead Drive. Let's start with Big Red and hear what the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs had to say during his regular Wednesday press conference.
Harrison won't go today. He's got a calf strain. Jalen Watson is sick. Pacheco is in protocol. Donovan Smith still has some tingling with the stingers there. And then Kadarius Toney with the hip strain. Look forward to the challenge of playing the Bengals. Heck of a football team. So well coached. I mean, Zach does a great job with them and works with the offense likewise. And Lou does a nice job with that defense. So we've got a good week of preparation and that's where we're headed. So with that, time, George.
Andy, cameras seem to be catching a lot of just frustration on the sidelines. So, do you feel like it's an unusual amount, and do you feel like did anything need to be calmed down? Is that part of your message this week?
Yeah. So I mean, but hey, listen, when you've won a lot of games, that have your tolerance level for not doing as well as we should goes down, and so things happen. But that's the great part about this is emotional football game. The game of football is an emotional game, so that's expected. I mean, you see those things happen. We just got to make sure we generate it in the right direction, and we go that way. So, and fix the problems. That's the first thing. So, and I've got a big piece of that. I'm very responsible for things going on. So, on the offensive side of the ball, and so I always look here first, and then we try to address the other issues that we might have. So,
is there any particular way to address that part about making sure it's sort of harnessed in the right way? I mean, is it something?
No, we talk about everything, buddy. We make sure we cover everything. So, yeah.
How do you do that, Andy? How do you turn all that frustration into something positive?
Well, that's what you do. You work to get yourself better. I mean, that's to make it positive. So that's the only way of going about it. You write a bad article. Well, I know you've done that, but you write a bad article, and you come back and you're going to do better the next one. So.
It's always a lot of times over the years, there's mistakes and things, you got to clean it up and do that. I'm assuming you're trying to push those same buttons and get that done. Is it things just not catching this time around or as a little longer?
You keep working, stay positive, move forward, learn, teach, practice do the fundamental things. That's what you do. Control what you can control.
And there were a few moments that seemed like a maybe pre-snap confusion. Don't know where it lied, but how would you just diagnose that? Smoothing out that process?
That's my fault on that. So I gotta make sure that's right. And when I stand up here and tell you that I've got a piece of that pie, I mean that's directly pointed right at me. So I gotta make sure that guys can do that. And make sure we're right there.
Andy, y'all preach keep working, but what do you tell the guys when they always keep working, but things still don't follow how they want it to?
Yeah, so it's like any other profession, right? You've got things you can work on to get better. Focus on that, right? Focus on those things to get better, and that's what you do. And you take care of that business first. So that's what we're working on.
So that is a sampling of what Andy Reid said today. What about QB1? It's been a tough couple of weeks for Patrick Mahomes. Here is what Mahomes had to say when he spoke to reporters earlier this afternoon.
Pat, just what's the biggest takeaway from Monday?
I think just got to be better as a unit. I got to play better, read the field better, and learn. But I mean, you got to learn from your mistakes, and you got to be better this next week because we got a great game against a great team coming up.
Patrick, it seems like whether it's the way the cameras are or just the situation, it seems like you're demonstrating more frustration lately than you normally have. Is it at all conscious, or is it just a reflection of what's been happening these last few weeks?
Just don't think I like losing. So I don't think anybody can be frustrated when they lose. It's just about how you respond.
Is it hard to know how to harness that? I mean, is that the way you want to do that message, to kind of make sure you motivate that way?
I think you motivate in a lot of different ways. I think I try to do my best to be positive and keep the guys going in the right direction. But I mean, you catch me sometimes on the sideline, I look frustrated. I think a lot of guys are frustrated that we're losing, but at the same time, you got to have the right message to know that the guys know that I believe in them, and I do. And so now it's just about how can we utilize our situation and make it a positive going into this next week.
Patrick, how do you channel all that frustration into something positive? And I'm not just talking about you, I'm talking about Kelsey and everybody else.
Yeah, I think people see frustration and they think it causes like controversy. But I see it as a way of showing that people care. They care about their profession. They care about trying to do whatever they can to win games. And so when I see stuff like that happen, obviously we want to be in a positive light and everything like that. But I see someone that cares about the game and someone that wants to be better, and not better for themselves, but for the team.
Patrick, one of your worst games was that loss in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you responded well the remainder of the season. What have you found about yourself that allows you to reset when you do have a poor performance?
you have to be critical with yourself. You have to be true to what's on the film and what's happening. I think a lot of people will make excuses, and that's why they don't take that next step or become better because of it. But you got to see the film. I mean, you look at the film, you made a lot of mistakes that you can't make in this league if you want to have success, and you have to learn from them and get better from them. If you look at it and try to make an excuse for why something happened or it's not your fault because this happened, and that's when you kind of stuff snowballs. I think if you look at the film and say, hey, I got to be better here. I got to get better footwork. I got to work the pocket better. I get the ball out of my hands when I need to, and learn like that. Then you can be better that next week, and it's gonna take that. I mean, this is a great defense that we're playing.
An example of something that you did not notice in the moment on Monday that you look back, I don't know, Monday night or Tuesday, that says, oh, that's an even bigger issue than maybe I originally thought in the moment.
Yeah, I think there's just little things with the footwork. I think anytime you see me drifting backwards in the pocket, that's never good for the team. That's something that goes back to my Texas Tech days, where I get in these old habits of I'm trying to make a big play happen whenever the play is there. And I think towards the end of the game, you saw that as I was drifting, maybe looking at the D line, and that's stuff that's got me in trouble before. And so you just learn from that stuff and try to get back to my footwork and fundamentals. And I think if I can do that, let the offense work for me, then I can go out there and have success.
Jumping off that, when you see guys downfield but not where they should be or where you want them to be, and you're having to scramble and do extra things, just can you take us the mentality of kind of things going on around you when they're not at their highest level?
I mean, in order for offenses to work in this league, it takes everybody, and it starts with me, and then it kind of goes throughout everyone else, and everybody has to be on the same page. And this last week we weren't on the same page in some critical moments, and that hurt us. But I believe in these guys, man. I mean, we work our tail off, and I know we say it every week, but I mean, we go out there and we're going to put whatever we can on tape. Everybody's putting everything they have in this game and during the week and during the game, and I trust these guys are going to continue to work. And we got 2 games left to prove it. I mean, at the end of the day, we can talk about it all we want. We got 2 games left to show that this work that we're putting in every single week is going to pay off. And I mean, I know we're not going to be the 1 seed and everything like that, but we can still win the AFC West. We can get into the playoffs, and once you get to the playoffs, it's open for everybody to go out there and win it.
So that is Patrick Mahomes, and again, a sampling of what he had to say this afternoon when talking to reporters for his usual Wednesday media responsibilities.
Big takeaway for me, no L'Jarius Sneed to practice today. That's not ideal. They need him because the Bengals have one weapon, and it's T. Higgins. And L'Jarius Sneed has been locking down top wide receivers all season, and they need him against T. Higgins on Sunday.
Yeah, no doubt about that. My big takeaway is his quote about people think of, being frustrated or whatever the word was as a bad thing, but actually it's an opportunity or whatever the heck the quote was. Like,
I think about it as showing that people care.
Yeah. Like, okay, dude, enjoy your Hawthorne Heights album. Like, little emo there, my guy. Let's get to one final timeout. We'll come back, wrap things up today with a final word. Time for a quick final word, Dan. You're up first.
I've been as optimistic as anybody about the Chiefs being able to find their way, and I'm not ready to start engraving their gravestone or write their eulogy just yet, but this is the lowest point of the Mahomes Reid era. This is the first time in this era of great football that the Chiefs have definitively not felt like a championship team, and they are running out of time to find their mojo.
Final word for me, Kansas finally won a bowl game, and how sweet was that? What a way to send off Jason Bean. What a way to send off Kenny Logan and a senior class that has been through a lot. The wide receivers go crazy. Great to see Lance Leipold get his first bowl win as the Kansas Jayhawks head coach. And again, I don't know what KU is going to do to memorialize Jason Bean's career, but KU do something, because that dude and what he went through and what he persevered through absolutely deserves it for the senior season he had with the Jayhawks. We're back tomorrow for just half an hour, 2 until 2:30, and then we've got a full show coming up to wrap up the calendar year on Friday. So until our short show tomorrow, for Dan, I'm Brendan. This has been 580 Sports Talk.